Hey everyone, my name is Nemo, and welcome to the first Domain Legion podcast. Today we'll be discussing the pins and the games that had the biggest impacts on the decade. Today I am joined by Faded.
Hey, my name is Faded Shadow on YouTube, and Twitter is Faded_Shadow33.
I'm also joined by Fantasy Jared.
Oh, nice to meet you. My YouTube is the Fiction Division. I like video games and anime. Pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Yeah, great guy. We also have Mr. Men.
Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Mr. Mint, also Mr. Mint on YouTube, and TNT_Mr. Mint on Twitter. I'm just your regular Smash player.
And then finally we have the Dyslexic Bear.
Hey, what is up, guys? I'm the Dyslexic Bear on YouTube and Twitter.
And we might have some people coming in and out throughout the night, and some new faces to join us as we go along. So, all right, let's get into the best games of the 2010s. We can all.
All right, shall we start in order of how you introduce everyone? Like Faded goes first, and then me, then Leo, etc.
Yeah. Just what was the best game, to you this decade?
Right.
I would like to take the devil's advocate and go for a game like CS:GO for its attributes into the competitive scene and kind of pushing esports a little bit further.
I think that's actually like a very vital part of this decade was how esports has grown so much from like the early 2000s where it was only like Counter-Strike, that was it, but CS:GO and League have kind of pushed it into a new light this decade.
Yeah, CS:GO was one of the first games to really push those prize pools into getting into the couple 100,000s, the 500,000, and the competitive scene has stayed relatively big, even though the game and its casual player base has decreased over the years, and a lot of bad decisions by Valve and making it free to play and all that stuff hasn't affected the competitive scene.
I really feel like this was the first game where surprise mechanics were really implemented, and where the first time that what are those things that make the chat clean had to be implemented.
Censoring. All right, so
wasn't there a really big transaction part in CS:GO again?
Skins.
They've constantly really tried to devalue the trading market because they don't make as much money if people are selling and buying from each other. So they kind of really messed over a lot of the traders in the competitive scene, in the casual market, which really discourages players that played a lot to continue playing, because a big part of CS is, hey, I got $300 in skins, I better play this game. And a couple years ago, we had the first U.S. team to actually win a Grand Major, which was a big deal.
Nice job, bro.
All right, but before we go any further, Plaid has introduced himself into the podcast, so just like introduce yourself, give us your Twitter handle. It's kind of.
I'm back in Plaid. My Twitter handle is Jimbo Bombo in all caps.
All right, so we can get back into the conversation. We might have some more people coming along throughout the night, so yeah. So, Fantasy Jared, what do you think the biggest game of the decade was to you?
Right, so tonight I'm going to be representing a series called Danganronpa, released initially in 2010 by Studio Spike Chunsoft. Danganronpa is for the uninitiated, a murder mystery visual novel in which you play as a pretty average high school student. He goes into this school called Hope's Peak Academy, where he meets 15 other people around his age, and there's also a teddy bear robot that wants you all to start murdering each other, and that's what escalates things. I've only played the first game in the series so far, Trigger Happy Havoc. There's 3 games in the series. They're all on Steam. And there's a lot of aspects of the game that I really like. The music is kind of an electronic. If I had to put it into words, it's very good. There's a lot of great compositions. The characters are all very dynamic and from their character designs to the very anime inspired aesthetic of the whole thing. A big part of the game is the class trials, where after this isn't a spoiler, but every chapter, at least one character is murdered, and you have to find out who the murderer is in the class trial. And during the class trials, you have to basically, by using evidence that you found during investigations, you have to prove who the murderer is. But if you get it wrong, then everyone dies except the one who actually did the murder, which is really cool.
Yo, hello.
Hello, Alex.
Yo, what's going on, guys?
You want to introduce him?
Oh, all right. Yeah. Like we said, new faces will be coming up. So Iflix, just go ahead and give us your Twitter handle, so we can, get on with things.
Oh, I just deleted my main Twitter, but I got a new one though. You want me to type it in the chat or?
No, just we're recording right now, so just go ahead and throw it out there.
All right. Should be at YABOIFLIXX.
At your boy
It's your boy Flix. Yeah.
Hi. Pleasure to have you, man.
All right.
I'm sorry. What?
Pleasure to have you
make
here.
your acquaintance.
Fantasy Jared was just talking about a Salem witch trials anime gone wrong, basically.
It's a
It's
pretty
hard,
hardcore game of Clue, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, very hardcore game of Clue.
Now,
for
would you
sure.
say this is where Freddy Fazbear came from?
I mean, you're not wrong.
All right. Well,
Oh God.
I don't know quite how those correlate. I guess it's kind of a jump. But what about you, Plaid? What do you think the best game for you was? Because Faded said CS:GO, and Fantasy said I forgot the name.
Danganronpa, which literally translates to bullet reputation.
Bullet Reputation. Okay.
There's an anime adaptation of the game, isn't there?
Oh.
There is, but it leaves out basically a lot of the depth and detail that made the game good. So I would play the game first and then maybe check out the anime if you want to see it animated.
Yeah.
That actually sounds pretty dope.
We're talking about a
So-
4.5 hour show compared to a 24 to 40 hour visual novel.
Yeah, I can kind of
Wow.
understand how the anime might fall back.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
quite.
Plaid?
So my favorite game of the decade, and what I would argue is the best, is going to be another Valve classic, Team Fortress 2. It
Ooh,
really,
All right.
I think it brought the casual side of gaming out of its little shell and made it and it added a whole thing of skin trading. I think that's a really big place for where it elevated.
Actually, I think that game came out before the decade.
2007.
Yeah, 2007. I mean, it probably had a huge impact, but I mean, that same impact was seen by CS:GO with the whole skins thing. So I mean,
Now, you see, now that I messed it up, I feel really bad, but I think it impacted this decade in how now online commerce with game skins is really big because of all the what's the word, flaunt? I don't know the word. All the fancy hats in TF2. I think that really did a number on game
cosmetics?
trading. I was gonna use a really complicated adjective that I learned in history.
Oh, all right. But yeah, no, I think that's a valid point. It did jumpstart that whole train of cosmetics and DLC.
I don't know if it had as much an impact in the as the whole decade as a whole, and definitely towards the early 2000s. TF2 was a big title, one of Valve's classic titles. Still has a decent following now, but I feel like the concept of skins and all that was really adopted by the CS:GO player base.
Just one last thing I want to point out about it. It's Valve's first endeavor into VR. They partnered with Oculus and made a VR version of it.
Really? I never heard
Oh,
about that.
I didn't know about
So
I haven't
I
heard
think
about it either.
that impacts this decade.
that. Wow, I did not know that existed at all. Period. Might need to link me that afterwards so I can download it or torrent it. I don't know.
It's
So
literally just the normal game.
All right. So you came in here late, but you're higher on the small talk. So iFlix, what do you think was the biggest game of this decade?
Uh,
It could be
no,
what you think impacted the most, or just your favorite game of the decade.
favorite game of the decade. I mean, I got a couple. I don't know if it's been said yet or not. Probably League of Legends. That was within the decade, right? It was like
I think that was released like slightly previous to the decade, but it did have a pretty big impact, and it's still
yeah.
very popular.
2009, October 27th.
See,
All
these,
right.
these guys did the research.
But
I would say League of Legends.
But I mean, if I don't know, if I had to lean towards one, I'd probably say Black Ops 3, just because of how fun it was. I mean, it's COD, but like, I feel like they stepped it up with Black Ops 3 for sure.
Yeah. I
Now,
wonder how many.
as you say that, I'm editing the next game domain video, and little
Nice.
spoiler has to do with Black Ops.
Well, would you say that
Right
Black
on, buddy.
Ops 3 had a bigger impact over Black Ops 1, which kind of started the whole
Right. Yeah.
kind of fan base to gather around this kind of way of
I
like
mean,
a shooter should be? I think
yeah.
Black Ops 2 was better than Black Ops 1, but I would put Black Ops
Oh,
1
yeah.
as more impactful to the decade.
Yeah. Oh,
This
yeah.
is what you remember when you think Black Ops is, or Call of
Right.
Duty's boots on the ground. Like for
Exactly,
years of all these
exactly, yeah.
futuristic titles, it's just been, but where's
See,
boots on the ground combat?
If we're talking boots on the ground, like my favorite COD of the decade, I mean, it'd be Modern Warfare 2, but I'd definitely say, what was that, Call of Duty, what was it? Sorry, I'm drawing
COD
a blank.
4.
I'm drawing, sorry, it's World War II, sorry.
Ah,
Call of Duty World War II, boots on the ground. I don't know, I loved that game. It was fun. It was done with the jetpacks, all that stuff. They brought in boots on the ground. Everybody's happy for like 6 months. And now you got Modern Warfare, and it ain't so bad either.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
yeah. I mean, World War II is when they kind of changed, their common ways of these jetpacks and like flying
Yep.
around, sliding, and then they went to a very more traditional, like battlefield type vibe. But I mean, we can talk about Call of Duty all day,
Right.
because
Yeah.
like within Call we can talk about and like how that itself has changed throughout the decade, and also the impacts it's made on other games, and even how it's like try to get into like the battle royale genre with like
Exactly.
Blackout.
Yep.
So there's a lot of talk about. So that might be for a future talk.
All right. Yeah.
All right. Mr. Mint, what do you think the best game of the decade, or even your favorite game of the decade was?
So I'm gonna be talking about a game that maybe wasn't the greatest of this decade, but one of the most impactful in most of the young children's and well in their history, and it's Skylander. So basically, in 2011, that game pretty much made the really huge step into the video game industry, but also into the toy industry by marketing a crap ton of figurines, which were known as Skylanders. I think there was about 36 of them in total, around 8 categories with 4 figurines in all of them, and it was a really huge game when we are taking a really big look at it. So basically, it was a game before it was like a game before microtransaction. You could play the game with the basic set, which was basically with Gilgrunt, Spyro, and Trigger Happy, if I recall properly, and you could basically beat the game. But you could also pay up for other figurines that were not obligatory, but they were still available to everyone. And what was really an interesting concept that they did is that they keep restocking their they keep restocking the Skylanders over the time. So, for example, they would set up a specific way for the first period of time, and then afterward they would be putting another wave while still restocking the older wave that was out. Compared to other figurines that were influenced by the Skylanders, such as the Amiibos, which always had a really big marketing issues around the 2014 and 16 era in general. in the U.S. and in Canada. I don't know if for y'all, Skylanders was a really important game that you might have the chance to play, but for me and for probably the game industry as a whole, it was a really impactful game without like being one of the greatest game of the decade.
Good choice. I do remember seeing Skylanders all over the place when like local game stops and whatnot. What genre is it, if I may ask?
It's not a platformer. I would say it's probably an adventure game.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It was
Well,
the first game I had for
yeah.
360.
Now, here's a question: shall we show if anyone has a Skylander set? Should they show it?
I would show it, but I don't have it. I don't have my Skylander set with me at the moment, and my dog ate a few of them.
Oh,
We happen to have a
alright.
man here with all of
Rest
them.
in peace.
Yeah. A
My
man
boomer
dumped
was
life savings
killed
into
by
it.
my
Great.
dog.
So first he ate the homework, and now it's the Skylanders. Where does it stop?
Exactly. Imagine
Where
going
does
to
it
your friend's house and instead of saying, "Oh, my homework was eaten by my dog," you'd be saying, "Oh, well, my Skylander was eaten by my dog. Now I cannot 1v1 you on whatever the stage was."
All right.
Wait.
Yeah.
There was PvP in Skylanders?
You didn't know? That was the greatest part about it.
Piece
What,
of my
you know?
soul just crumbled away.
Sounds like
1v1 me with my
pay to win to
badge.
me.
That's all I have to say.
I mean, that actually could be pay to win, because don't different Skylanders have like different,
Yeah.
abilities? Yeah, man.
I mean, maybe they had like 3 to 4 abilities at max that you could choose. There was 2 different paths per Skylanders, but they were
Skylanders
all
really was when
so unique. It's only that
Skylanders.
the biggest issue is that they started killing the franchise, which with the other games that they released that were basically DLCs while being a DLC.
All right. Yeah, Skylanders led to a lot of stuff afterwards too. Like we see Nintendo and Disney doing all this stuff now that is definitely profiting off of what Skylanders was.
Wasn't there also a Lego version of?
I believe so. Yeah, yeah.
I
Actually,
think
I
it
have a
was
few.
Dimension. I think.
But Dyslexic Bear. We can get into like what the overall best game was like later in discussion. But we're going through like everyone's personal favorite. And Dyslexic Bear, what is your favorite?
So I honestly chose another Valve game. So I actually chose Portal 2 because Portal 2 was, for one of the most massive sequels to the original Portal, which was actually named 2007's Game of the Year. So I feel like Portal 2 is one of the actually greatest games. I don't know if it's really impacted much of the decade as it compared whenever it first came out, but it has such an extensive single player, which is actually super fun to play, plus an amazing co-op with its own dedicated story, characters, and gameplay, and of course with a pretty advanced physics engine that they actually use, which is still pretty fun to actually play today, as well as their own original music. And then now, if you actually play it on PC, there's people who are actually making their own custom co-op maps that you can now play today, which is really fun. Uh, it was a really big part of my childhood, and I absolutely love that game, and I've played it over and over and over again. So I personally think that Portal 2 was actually a really great game of the decade, which originally came out back in 2011.
Lovely choice. As an outsider to the Portal series, do you mind if I ask what the difference is between the first and second game?
Well, from the first to the second game, well, for the first one, it didn't have a multiplayer for one, but the second one, of course, was continuing out the story. But I mean, I feel like the second one was actually a lot more entertaining and the story was a lot longer. Plus, there's so much more you can actually do into the game, and it's always fun to play with your friends. And it's just downright entertaining. I mean, the first one is okay and all. And of course, the first one was an absolutely huge game. Everybody actually loved it. But I feel like Portal 2 was probably the better Portal.
Yeah, I think the Portal game. We can all talk now. I think the Portal games were kind of like every puzzle game after that. They kind of tried to be Portal because Portal was such a massive success, and you can kind of see it in how different games have their dynamics set out.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
even for like the Valve Index for like when it came out to demonstrate like the finger tracking and all that. They used kind of a Portal setting to kind of bring back that nostalgia and see like the robots up close and all that. So it's not
Along
like it was even forgotten about.
along with that VR scene, the a Portal setting and the Portal personality modules are used in the Steam VR tutorial and all over Steam VR.
All right. Wow. I don't use Steam VR, so I had no clue about that. But we just had someone join the chat. Like you, is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
All right. So essentially, just give us your Twitter handle, YouTube name, and tell us what your favorite game of the decade was. We'll get into the best one and that had the most impact as a group later on. But right now, we're just going to talk about what was your personal favorite of the decade.
Okay. Well, my Twitter and my YouTube are like huge surprise. It's like you. No, it's all the same, but they're both, yeah, they're both like you. I messed that up. I messed up my.
It's good. It's good.
I'd probably say my personal favorite game of the decade would be actually God of War 4. I feel like I feel like it's a really good example of a game that was executed like perfectly. Do you want like a rundown of like why I?
Yeah, yeah. Just explain your stance on why it's your favorite game of the decade.
Okay. Well, for starters, I think that the story is awesome, both as a continuation of the series, but also as a standalone game. Because, I mean, not everyone playing the game has played all the other, God of Wars. So even as a standalone game, it does a really good job of still keeping the player interested. It's not like, for example, Kingdom Hearts, when they came out with Kingdom Hearts 3. It was a game that you had to have played the rest of the series in order to really like it. God of War 4 didn't really have that element. Of course, you would still enjoy it had you played the rest of the series, but the story does a really good job of just as a standalone game. On top of that, I think the combat is awesome. I think the way that they did the combat with the amount of customization and like just all of the different options you have and making it really easy to use all of those options was done amazingly. And it's an overall challenging game, like throughout your entire experience. It's not a game that you can just hack and slash your way through. You really have. It's a game that'll constantly provide you with a challenge and really keep you playing.
All right, yeah, that's a great reason to have that as your favorite game of the decade. I mean, is it the Dark Souls of Norse mythology?
Basically, yeah.
You mentioned you wouldn't had to play the other God of Wars. David enjoyed it, and I can testify to that. I haven't played any of the other God of Wars, and I had just a fantastic time going through the God of War story because I felt like a new start to it because it was using a different mythology.
Absolutely.
Is it a very challenging game or?
I think in the beginning maybe, but once you get kind of the hang of the mechanics, it becomes very like gratifying to just kind of string these combos together and just learn how to play. Rewarding.
Definitely.
Come along now, boy.
Exactly. Come here, boy.
I hated him so much at the end.
Atreus?
Yeah, I just did not like him at all at the end.
We're gods. We can do whatever we want.
Dies.
Dumb boy.
Have you seen the memes where it's just dad of boy?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, man. All right, so now that we've gotten everyone's personal favorite, we can like talk about what had the biggest impact. Like as a group, we can have a discussion about what the biggest game that had an impact on everything. Like this game changed how the UI interface works and how mechanics should, be followed. Changed how the controls should be schemed, and etc.
Right.
I just wait, can I mention something real quick?
Go ahead.
I just realized about it. but I do remember that someone mentioned about price pool and all earlier. And with that, there was another game that came out like around maybe 2015, 16, or 17, which is Fortnite, and nobody talked about it so far.
Oh, we're talking
Yeah, I
about
was gonna
favorites. We're
mention
going to
that,
be talking
honestly.
about a more broad
No,
effect
but
later.
like I know someone mentioned like some game that were really influential. I think.
Yeah, CS:GO with the competitive.
Yeah.
And like I do remember that Fortnite basically was a game that really helped social medias and basically the older generation to understand that esport is an actual thing and it's in some ways a sport that
It's
people
still a
can
live
practice.
debate.
Yeah, it's
It's so
like even on Twitter you see people like go off on each other like it's not a real sport. Like Ninja, like what a month ago, he got heated for it, saying that it takes just as much talent to be good at a game as it does to throw a football every time.
Shall we go to the politics channel?
I think Fortnite did a great job in pushing itself and gaming into a mainstream audience, while kind of representing kind of a more child-friendly side of game, we'll say. So it was
As they're
more,
shooting each other with shotguns.
yeah, but you know what I mean.
I mean, it opened up a lot of doors for a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely thought it was a really good spin on the whole battle royale genre. Really, while I don't personally like Fortnite, I think it was a really good spin where you have to build your own cover, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's
Now
just a
all I
whole
can
other
think of-
mechanic that's part of the game with the building. Yeah.
Now all I can think of is Cuisine Royale. It's a burger-based Fortnite game.
oh god.
Oh boy.
Where can I get this game?
And another thing that happened after
Steam.
that game is that there was so many rip-offs and so many games that inspired their main engine out of Fortnite.
Well, I mean, Fortnite's engine though was already pretty popular. It's just they tried.
Unreal Engine.
Yeah, their
Yeah.
artistic style started going more towards Fortnite rather than the engine itself being.
That is true with H1Z1 and PUBG, I think, on the market before Fortnite.
And then they got a lot more cartoony with all of their elements and all that, which I mean, you can see that probably best with H1Z1.
That is true.
My favorite Fortnite knockoff is Good Night.
I've never heard of that one actually.
I was just referencing a meme.
All right. My bad. Okay, so cruising, that's a real thing. All right.
It's
So-
actually really cool.
Oh, all right. I might check it out afterwards then. But like Fortnite, it did a lot for what?
The last like 3-4 years.
Yeah, it did. It was the last 3-4 years, so it didn't. It was the later into the decade that actually had an effect on it. But before that, like what happened before that, like 2011, 2012, all the way up to like 2015.
I think there
A
were a
lot of
lot
games
of
changed the
say-
dynamics of games.
I'd say Titanfall 2. It's the first game to give very advanced movement mechanics.
Titanfall 2 was sacrificed, though. I mean, they used it almost as like a pawn to boost their other games. They dropped it right in the middle of a bunch of big game releases.
I
to
know,
kind of
but-
boost the sales of one of their others.
I know, but it's just it introduces so much to games, and so many games have taken away from it.
I can kind of see where you're coming from there.
Yeah.
There was a lot of it is an older game, but there was a lot of mechanics that I see in a lot of the games that have come out recently that have those same mechanics. I'm not sure if they stem in from Titanfall 2, but I definitely understand Titanfall 2 being one of the first.
Now, they might be taking movement mechanics from Apex Legends, which thus took it from Titanfall 2 being a branch of the Titanfall universe.
Mhm.
Because Titanfall 1 didn't have nearly as many movement mechanics, like the grapple, and or the hollow, or the hollow whatever, the hollow pilot.
I actually never got into the Titanfall games. They just weren't my thing. Like they looked cool. I picked up the controller. I just couldn't get into it.
I think that's due to again the bad marketing that the company that owned Titanfall at the time, when they released the second game, they didn't release it at an optimal time to actually get sales or get press for it. They
Yeah, 'cause
released it to compete with another company releasing, I forgot what game it was, but it was a very big title. And
Oh,
then they also
so-
released their title right there as well.
What they did was they had no,
Battlefield 1.
because no,
Yeah, Battlefield
yeah,
1.
but what they did was because it was EA that because it was a third party making the game, EA being the publisher, and EA just threw it into bundles and such, and I hated that about that. But there's just so much to the game, enough that in the not the tutorial, the demo alone, I got like 30 hours before buying it.
I mean, this company hasn't really had the best, record with doing advertisements because I'm pretty sure Apex Legends just straight up dropped, like with like maybe a teaser trailer, and that's it. Like,
But Apex has a great player base, and they've done great sponsorships, and
Mhm.
they've really pumped up their advertising post-launch.
Yeah,
yeah.
the only thing about Apex though is like you play a game and then you play with the same players the next game. Like there's really not that many people that play.
I think
I
that's
mean,
debatable.
yeah, I mean, I guess that's just kind of like how you have your settings set up because you can have it in like different servers, and you can also say, oh, I want people closer to me or farther from me, etc.
I love
When
the
you're
art
matchmaking.
style of Apex. It takes kind of like meshes Titanfall 2 and the
Borderlands.
Fortnite art style. Just tries to
Oh.
make it nice looking but good for kids.
Hmm. Yeah. I always like their weird little emotes that they have going on.
Yeah, but like also it's made by EA, which like charges so much money just to unlock so much stuff. Like that's the only thing I don't like about EA is they're so greedy with the money, like FIFA,
Yep.
etc. There's I don't know, maybe it's just
I don't think that great.
Flicks,
I don't think
I just really want to defend one of my favorite games, and what I can argue the best game of the decade is that it was made by a third party, development branch of EA, which couldn't release it on their own because of contracts, and had to release it through EA. And EA just rakes it through the mud, doesn't do anything with it. The developers
but I
didn't
mean-
want the purchasable items; they didn't want cosmetics, and then EA just
Well, yeah,
forced
they
that
over
onto
to
them.
EA, they put their name on it, and they're gonna tax money out the, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But EA is definitely like really, really greedy. But as that's more just for cosmetic stuff. At least it's not for like stat upgrades. But overall, is like a game in general. It's still a really good game, and you can play the game without making the purchases for that like
Right,
1%
yeah.
chance you'll get the legendary item you want.
Which is rare, yeah.
And I don't think it's bad to have cosmetics for a free battle royale game because it's not as though you're upgrading any kind of stats to win. It's more like you want money, you want to spend money on just stupid
Yeah.
cosmetics. Go ahead and do that.
I mean, I bought the battle pass for all 3 seasons.
I think
I'll
it's good to
probably
encourage EA to do stuff like that rather than to pull off, Battlefront 2 stunts where they lock off part of the game because
Yeah,
they feel like they deserve it.
My big issue with them is Battlefront 2. Like I bought the deluxe edition, so I never saw the hey, you can't have this weapon or this attachment.
Same.
But when my friends would play on accounts, how like game trading,
Mhm.
where you just trade games with your friends. I'd hand my game over to a friend. They'd be like, "Hey, dude, all my weapons are locked. I've got no attachments. I'm being destroyed in multiplayer." So that really pissed me off.
Yeah. So like if you want to get rid of that game, you really can't because you have that DLC binded to your account, so you can't just like pass it off to someone. Like that game is kind of screwed if you're trying to give it to a friend.
Yeah.
But I mean, on that same note, Fortnite has the same cosmetics type stuff. You pay $10, just the same as Apex Legends for the season pass. You get very similar rewards.
But I feel like the difference there is that you know what you're getting with Fortnite. With Apex, it's more like loot crates, so you're paying for a chance to get something.
Right.
That you want. But
They
if
have
you
a market where you can purchase
Exactly.
stuff as well, though.
That's true. It really just comes down to what you want.
Mm-hmm. If you'd rather have the chance to get the super mega rare item that costs a little bit more than you're willing to pay just for a very cheap price, or if you just want to straight up buy the medium thing that you have the money for.
Don't forget about the guaranteed chances they have implemented. After, since they know like a lot of companies Valve with CS:GO really kind of taunt that like knife in front of you, that super rare item, just so that you spend more money on it. What Apex does is they give you a guaranteed chance. If you don't hit this within this many cases, the last case you will 100% get the high rarity item.
Yeah, you get the highest rarity item on your 1000th case. But the issue with that, though, is that to get to 1000 cases, because of how long they make their seasons, you have to buy cases. So
I mean, and you can also spend like crafting materials too.
they don't have crafting material as far as I remember.
Yeah, they have crafting materials, but I mean, you could also just not give players a chance to get that item after us spending so much money. Because I think it did happen when they first introduced that system. Some guy had bought 1,000 cases, and his last one, he got it like the guaranteed rare item. I mean, if you were like a company like Valve with CS:GO, you open up 1,000 items, you still don't get anything. They just kind of brush it off. Oh, you get 100 blues.
I mean, that's good and all, but 1,000 cases before you can get that one item you want. Is anyone really willing to spend that much money?
Well,
Yeah.
streamers
Nope.
obviously,
Streamers,
Streamers, yeah.
and those are the biggest advertisers for those games.
YouTubers who need that clickbait. I think
CS:GO case opening, not clickbait.
yeah. I just wish more people would post the unexciting case openings that really show you're not gonna get that.
I mean,
But those are unentertaining, so no one's gonna watch those. So like those will just go down in the YouTube feed, and they won't get that many views because it's like, oh, I'm watching this guy waste $100. That's not gonna make me want to play the game. I want to watch something that excites me, makes me want to like go pick up that controller and try again and again and again.
I mean, there was one guy who did that. Cryos Gaming. He did a case opening where he got nothing. It was pretty funny, actually.
Yeah,
Watch this one guy who does CS:GO case openings. He did them for like 2 years, every single Sunday, and he hadn't hit a knife, and he'd open up 100 cases every week for months, and it took him like over a year before he could get one knife.
That's scary. I wonder how much debt he's in.
Yeah, imagine that. That's like $3 per case. We'll round it's like 280, but we'll say $3 per case. 300 of those, or $300 every week for like a year before he got anything that was worth like only $150. Now you could
Oh,
do
did he-
you could do stuff like that with CS:GO does, or you can go Apex Legends, and I guarantee you Apex Legends has a higher drop chance than some other games with their loot crates, because CS:GO's rare drop chance is like a 0.4% or
So
less.
this guy must have sold his car, his children to do this, because that's 4,500, and I can't imagine being able to afford that, even with paychecks and such.
I mean, was he making money out of YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube and Twitch.
Oh, maybe that's how. Maybe there was people like supporting him on Twitch with live donations.
Yeah, sardoms for a reason.
If they were popular enough, those CS:GO case openings could have like paid for themselves.
They didn't.
But wasn't there some places in the world that actually pay in-game transactions?
Hmm?
I think.
CS:GO's whole marketplace can be transferred to real cash if you just sell it to traders or sell it on third-party websites and get your PayPal linked, and then the money gets sent there.
Same
It
thing
sounds
with
a little
TF2.
sketch. Yeah, it sounds a little sketch, but that's how the marketplace stays up, and that's why there's even players still on those servers.
This whole guy spending 4,500 reminds me of a comment just before the podcast started. Don't remember who's it by, but it was on GameStop. They're the biggest scammers around. Walked in with my little brother in an Xbox.
Yeah.
With an Xbox 360. I loved that.
It got so bad he just ended up calling the streams the Sunday Blues, because he only opened up blues, which was the worst rarity you could get in the case.
Oh man, rest in peace, man.
Yeah, you stopped doing it, by the way.
Yeah, there's a few streamers I watched that got sponsored by Ubisoft, and they did like Rainbow Six Siege alpha pack openings, and like, and the thing is that you can always get the same thing, and it has zero value essentially. It just gives you like and it's just the biggest waste of time.
But that's not that bad because you can only really conveniently buy it with in-game currency, and that certain in-game currency you can't buy.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
really conventionally.
Well, I mean, the thing with CS:GO is that you can redeem that for real money and everything else. You can loop that back into your own account, but with Rainbow Six Siege, you can't really do much with that.
Yeah, like you put a good point because when you're selling stuff on the Steam marketplace, you could put that money back into buying more and more games.
Yeah. But we've been on this topic for microtransactions for a little bit. Everyone gets a little triggered when it comes to the topic, so we all have something to say. But let's get back to the game of the decade. So we've had Fortnite discussed and like the microtransactions with Apex.
Minecraft.
Apex. All right, Minecraft. All right.
Why haven't we talked about Minecraft? Minecraft had such a huge impact. I know there's somebody who was waiting for this, but
Me.
the impact Minecraft had on not just the game industry, but the entertainment industry. It sparked a whole new genre of like, hey, let's push child friendly content for like YouTube. Don't do that anymore, by the way. But it really started a lot of careers for a lot of big YouTubers and kind of helped YouTube and the whole gaming scene there kind of develop a huge audience. And then it resurged towards the end of the decade again for round two.
And it's still going strong, it seems.
It's stronger now because the nostalgia's kicked in and we're like, hey guys, remember when this was cool?
It's
Remember
cool
when
again.
we would all say creeper?
Oh man.
Oh man. We
I just
couldn't
wanna
go
point
through
out-
a single podcast without saying that.
I just want to point out how like on the gun Faded was to mention Minecraft. Like I don't even think you got to finish your sentence before you just like Minecraft.
Yeah, no, he did. But Minecraft was huge. It was huge. No one can say it wasn't. It changed a lot of this decade, like completely.
I think you could say Minecraft was game of the decade, and it wouldn't even be up for that big of a debate because of the resurgence it had, because the impact it had in just the entertainment industry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And
now
then,
here's sorry.
as for game industry, I don't know the extent of its impact other than selling a lot of copies.
I mean that sandbox type thing was really only done by a few games before it, like Gary's Mod and all that. But Minecraft, like after Minecraft came out and after it blew up, you would see all kind like Lego even made their own game for you to strictly just sandbox, just because. Of
Oh yeah, Lego World. But about Minecraft, I want to say I've realized it has to be like purged every couple years because all the like squeakers and little kids move on to it, and then it just gets so unfun. Then you wait a couple years, you come back, and it's empty, and then it grows again.
I think that's to say with anything that gets popular. Everybody likes to hate something that gets popular and likes to go back to, oh, back in my day, this was the good stuff, It's less of squeakers and more just being, I hate this thing because it's big. Same thing happens with Fortnite.
That's what I think is good about Minecraft, though, because it loops. It comes back around. It's not a permanent end.
If it wasn't for Fortnite, I don't think Minecraft would have come around again. I really don't. I think you need something that you can hate on and say it's for little kids just so that when you go back to something that might be like, Minecraft, you kind of can go like, oh, there's no little kids here. I guarantee you there's still a lot of little kids playing Minecraft because whenever I go to Sky Wars, I get beat horribly and I know they're like 7.
I know that feeling.
I think everyone's been in that situation where we're being beat by a kid half our age, yet we're just like, we can't curse them out. They're little. It's okay. Just like in game chat or something. But so Minecraft game of decade? Is this what we're agreeing on, or does someone have a little comment to?
Oh, I could actually add something about it. Is that Minecraft was also really used for coding in general, for beginners in coding in general and just programming.
That is true. It was kind of easy to set up mods for that, wasn't it? Or like program mods.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point about Minecraft because my first ever experience with coding was in Minecraft, and now I'm making mods for video games like Arma 3, where it's a little more complicated. So I think that's
You talk about mods. If we're talking about modding in games and big, then I think you can't deny that Skyrim also has a lot of potential for being a huge game of the decade or being a game of the decade. It has over 50,000 mods, and it's been released more than any other game out there right now.
Are we trying to be family friendly here? Because if so, we should probably skip over half the Skyrim mods.
Well, either way, it had
50,000 is 50,000, but
yeah. Either way, it had a lot. But I mean, this is my personal thing. Gary's mod, like I said earlier, it also like got a lot of people into coding and all that, just like Minecraft in sort of way. And it's still like around. Like you still see videos constantly about that game, and it's been what, 18 years, 19 years.
yeah, it came out in 2004, December 24th.
Yeah.
I don't know
This
if I
man knows
call. I don't know if I would say that Minecraft, or sorry, that Gary's mod is the biggest game of the decade, but I would
Oh,
certainly call it
I
the
wasn't
most
arguing that.
creative.
Yeah.
Because you can really do almost anything in Gary's mod, especially with like all the different customization options. I've seen tons of people make their like start to a big channel by just posting Gary's mod stuff, whether it's comedy or you're making like a story or something. I respect it a lot.
SMG4 probably is the biggest example with Gmod, if I'm correct.
Say again?
I'm pretty sure SMG4 is one of the greatest example, if I'm correct, with the
Yeah.
right program, that he pretty much abused everything there is with Gmod and made a career out of it.
Exactly. For the uninitiated, SMG4 is a Mario. He does Gary's mod videos using the Mario 64 engine. He does a lot of comedy stuff. He takes the characters and he puts them in these silly situations. It's very psychedelic, if I had to word it. That's a great example, though, Mr. Mint, of a YouTuber who got their career started because of Gary's mod.
You can't
That
also
really
forget about all the crap posters. I say it like that, but all the crap posters for Gary's mod stuff. I mean,
Well,
that's a whole nother genre of just upload videos. It's like early 2000s YouTube of just let me just make this horrific animation with Gary's mod. Shrek is love.
In a way.
No, I love
I'm
the
so glad you
the
brought that up.
Thomas the Tank Engine, that one.
I love the
Thomas
the
in-game
Dink
Engine.
animations that mod
Oh,
has.
that was great.
Man. Gary's mod
else?
is so
Go ahead.
I completely forgot about. Oh, I don't know if you were telling me to go ahead. I completely forgot about Shrek is Love, Shrek is Life. I'm glad someone brought that up. You just brought back nightmares, so thanks for that.
You mean terrific dreams?
they're wet dreams, man. They're wet.
Yeah.
Shrek games.
Wasn't sure if we could say
games
that.
for the best game of the decade.
Oh, well, I might not be on the next podcast then.
Oof.
I feel like VR Chat, another huge game, was very inspired by Gary's mod as well. If you think about the similarities between the two and what you can do.
Yeah, it's really fun. But
Yeah.
if we go to the VR, VR wasn't really as big as regular gaming, flat screen gamers were in this decade. But can we talk about maybe like a VR game of the decade? Because I think VR has made immense pushes in the last year or two, kind of push itself into the mainstream.
What was Duck Hunt? That game?
That one was really good.
Yeah, those developers have been like pushing VR to its limits, and like far more than a lot of other AAA developers.
They actually made one of the most popular games right now. It's called Boneworks. If you know VR, you've heard of it.
Mhm.
I think they're the same developers behind that.
Yeah.
Behind
And,
VR Chat?
No, Boneworks. And they
No.
sold, I think it was a couple 100,000 copies for a VR game that is terrific within its first 3 days of being up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They're so if you know Corridor on YouTube,
Yeah, Node.
they're a sub part of Corridor, which is like an overall combination of a bunch of which is just imagine a movie studio, but it's got a game section, it's got a
Mhm.
airsoft channel, and then it's got a short movie channel.
Yeah. I actually watched Corridor a lot in Node, and they play all these games, and they showed up like that's actually how I discovered that game, Boneworks, is because I saw Node playing it, and I was like, whoa, that's really cool. And that actually kind of got me putting some money aside, trying to like, hey, I kind of want a VR set now. I want to spin around like Neo from the Matrix and like shoot people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction for VR. And then in this next decade, we could probably see a surgence of VR games. Maybe. Who knows?
Here's I don't know if you'd call this an unpopular opinion, but definitely I think it could spark a debate. But I think Beat Saber deserves the title as the VR game of the decade because it was the original like system seller, like this amazing beat game that you could play, keep you exercising. If you own a VR, chances are you looked at Beat Saber or bought Beat Saber. I don't agree with its winning game of the year, but I think it did have the most impact for VR of the decade.
Now, I think that brings me to something I mentioned before the podcast. I was so desperate to play VR games because of just all the hype around it on YouTube that I took a phone headset for VR, put a phone in it, and used Wiimotes to play VR.
How
So,
did you
little
set
tip
that
to anyone on a
That
budget.
sounds horrifically cursed, and I want you to know how much I hate you.
That's dedication.
Don't worry, I love it because like I don't even know how you set that up and program that to work.
There's a special place in hell for you.
It's right
I'm
next to
already
the.
there.
It's right next to the ones that curse on the Minecraft Christian channels.
And it wants to talk about wet dreams and Shrek is life. Shrek is life.
Okay, there is a real a Christian Minecraft server. The Vatican Pope made a Minecraft server to promote online good etiquette.
Oh god.
You see the Vatican wearing the weeb outfit? That's my boy.
I'm utterly unaware of this, and I don't want to be aware.
Oh, moving on. Dyslexic Bear, you mentioned earlier that Portal was your favorite of the decade. I was wondering if you think that's the biggest puzzle game, like, of the decade, perhaps even of all time. I know there's a few others. One of them my friend really likes it. It's called the Talos Principle, for instance. But I think we can all agree Portal was a big Kickstarter, a sort of
Yes.
genre.
Yeah.
Of an
Did-
underrepresented genre, I think. You were saying, Nemo?
Like, do you guys think that Portal had like, because Portal had a lot of puzzle mechanics going on with it? Do you think that had any effect on like these awesome puzzle games, but not quite in the same, aesthetic, like Uncharted or there's one pirate game I used to play that was like nothing but puzzles. Do you think like Portal had any effect on those games, or Portal
I
had
think-
like?
I think I had like a background effect. Like I'll explain that as I don't think anybody consciously was like I gotta make the next Portal,
Mhm.
but it was always in their mind that like what's a good puzzle game feel like? What's a rewarding good puzzle game feel
Mhm.
like? It's Portal. So I think if you play a puzzle game and if you don't subconsciously compare it to how good Portal felt, I don't know, man. I think it had a really big impact on quality of games and puzzles.
I mean,
So-
Valve really set the bar pretty high with Portal 2. That's why they never made a Portal 3.
Can we
Yeah. Okay, so we've gone over these AAA games. Valve being one of the biggest game creators. Like everyone knows the name Valve.
Mhm.
What if we get into like some of the indie games? Like
I was about to say that.
yeah,
Super Meat Boy.
yeah, Super
first
Meat Boy, and like everyone has BattleBlock Theater or Castle Crashers in their Steam library, Xbox library. They have it somewhere, right?
Castle
What about the
Crasher.
two big juggernauts the last couple of years, which were FNAF and Undertale?
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh.
Undertale took an approach that kind of made this kind of content that you could think about a game and a different way to play it. And I know some other games kind of adapted that like morality issue into like, well, let's not just make a hack and slash. Let's see if we can add a deeper meaning to it, even though a game could be fun without it. And then FNAF for pushing itself so far into down the public's throat that they have successfully made another Flappy Bird, not a Flappy Bird, another Angry Birds, where there's merchandise, movies, talk of more games. It's become way bigger than an indie game could be.
Wait, there's a FNAF movie.
Yes.
What?
It's coming out. It's not out yet. Get your calendars ready because it's gonna be the movie to watch. I'm telling you.
It's gonna be the movie of the next decade of the 2020.
Movie of the decade. Game Domain Film needs to make an in-depth review. It needs to give it 10 out of 10. It's just
they're also making a Minecraft film, Steve Carell as Steve.
Oh,
amazing.
God.
You want to know what's interesting? They made a failed Minecraft film around 4 years ago that never got out of the trailer phase.
I
But
didn't even see the
why?
trailers.
I saw the trailer once while watching Dan TDM. He was the thing back then.
Oh God.
Him and Sky Does Minecraft were like the kingpins of Minecraft.
Maybe Stampy Cat.
Oh, I forgot about him.
He has 10 mil now, but he only gets like 100,000 views.
Same thing with
Still
Sky.
exists.
But let's get back to games because that streamers and all that can be a whole nother
Yeah.
day.
Mhm.
I'd like to elaborate upon one thing. I think it was either Faded or Nemo said this, but the rise of indie developers. Some really big developers got their bearings this decade as well. A few great examples: Yacht Club Games of Shovel Knight fame, Team Cherry of Hollow Knight fame, the studio MDHR. They did Cuphead. Lots of really talented indie developers really made the 2010s. They really indie games weren't really the biggest thing in the mid 2000s, but this sort of retro revival of the 2010s was definitely a very interesting aspect of the decade, I think.
Which games would
I
you
don't know who
contribute
I'd
to
call
that?
the best, but Faded, go ahead.
Which games would you contribute most to that like success and like believing indie game developers can get their groundwork or giving them that motivation?
I'd say Cuphead because
FNAF.
Elon Musk loved it enough to put it on the Tesla cars. So, just saying.
I think FNAF, because FNAF was like it was like a 1 week creation, and he sent it to like a game dev competition, and then it blew up. Like this was just one guy in his garage or basement, wherever he was. Maybe it was even his own bedroom. He made this game in a week, sent it to a competition, and it has blown up. And they're in the middle of filming it right now. Like,
What
I think-
about like Undertale's like what website did they go to like set a GoFundMe to set a goal when they released the game, and upon like their little trailer and the description of Undertale, they managed to raise over $30-something thousand before the game was released. I think it was even more than that.
GoFundMe?
I think it might have been.
I think that a big part of it is that a lot of the genres, like for example, Undertale, are really underrepresented. So when a big title comes out, like for example, how Five Nights at Freddy's sort of reinvented the horror genre, Undertale reinvented the RPG horror genre, Cuphead reinvented the run and gun, so on and so forth. A big thing that makes a lot of these indie games so popular is that you don't see a lot of developers really trying their hand at it outside of the big studios like Nintendo and Sony. So when an indie game like that comes out, not only do they put a lot of heart and effort into it, like I know Undertale has a huge story, for instance, but it really is that example of an underdog sort of that didn't have a huge community before exploding because it released at the right place and the right time. That's my stance on it anyway.
Out of curiosity, has anyone talked about Celeste?
Celeste? Oh,
Yes.
for
I
the
mean,
uninitiated, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Mint.
I mean, it did get a 10 out of 10 on Steam, and it was also nominated in the game at the Game Awards in 2018, I believe, or 2019. I'm not sure about it.
Did hear about that all over the YouTube feeds. It's this game where it's kind of like the vein of Super Meat Boy, where they're meant to surpass this really hard challenge. You're meant to die a lot of times, but once you finally get past it, it's meant to be extremely rewarding. Not unlike the design philosophy of Cuphead, where yeah, you're gonna die a lot of times on the boss fights, but once you do, it's like you feel on top of the world, like you can't be stopped. It's a very cool game.
I did also hear that the soundtrack was pretty good for an indie game, and that the graphics were really charming with the style of gameplay it was, which is a platformer, I believe.
Indie
You
game
know, a
is
connection
always-
I've
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Faded.
a connection I've just made is a lot of indie games that kind of don't project that AAA kind of graphics. They usually dial it back. Have really brought up the audio quality and the music to kind
Yeah.
of compensate for that. I've noticed that in like Undertale, in Heartbound, the game you're talking about apparently has really good music too. And I think that's one way developers can kind of make themselves stick out is just having great soundtrack.
I feel
Yeah.
like that'd be a pretty good way, like, since indie developers can't always have the best graphics, kind of like something that would, I guess, make up for maybe not the best graphics, but a really good soundtrack. And even though, at least, like, trying to make their graphics, I guess, satisfying. So while simple, still making it really satisfying.
Absolutely.
As simple as it is able to create an atmosphere that like really pulls you in because the music is just it feels good with what you know is going on inside the world.
Absolutely. It's also a way of sort of keeping the art from the past around because a YouTuber, he's an anime YouTuber by the name of Super Eye Patch Wolf. He basically said that creativity back in the 90s in video games was born from limitation. So the whole pixel art, the retro revivals we've been seeing in the 2010s, if we didn't have those limitations back in the 80s and 90s, we wouldn't be getting games like Shovel Knight or Celeste. The pixel style and the old like 8-bit, 16-bit music is still a really popular thing, and that makes me really happy.
That brings me to actually a nice little Mario fact. In Super Mario 64, the main theme and the boss fight music were the same. The boss fight music was just it played at 25% slower speed and backwards.
Really?
Yes.
I'm surprised no one's brought up like Mario Odyssey as game of the decade because I know there's a lot of fanboys that are like Mario, like this is it, and then the same goes for Fallout. Like Fallout and Mario, I'm surprised that no one here brought that up because those are two games that have massive followings and just
Yeah, Mario Bros.
I mean,
Wanna
all the Mario
see-
games are really good in general. That's the problem.
I think that's it
Yeah.
though. They just fall at being a good game. They don't they can't contribute more to the decade. I think there's a lot of games you could say were great potential game of the years or just good games of the decade, but I don't think you can also compare them to being a game of the decade. Like CS:GO, I don't think is anywhere near the top list of best games this decade. I think it
I
was
mean,
a packed.
I got another game that's a really top game of this decade, but I don't know if it's an indie game. I mean, it's not an indie game, but
Oh, what
Grand
is
Theft
it?
Auto 5,
Yeah,
one of
that
the
is-
highest selling games. I can't believe that hasn't been brought up actually too, especially where they went with the online gaming and
totally reinvented the whole like what do I want to call it? Open world kind of game, like games like Persona 5 and Yakuza.
yeah,
That sort of
Yeah.
genre really exploded in the 2010s, I think.
yeah, especially GTA 5, and then 6 coming out really soon. It's gonna be a big hit. I mean, it's not PG-13 as it is.
I feel like GTA 6 is gonna have to change a lot in order to keep the playability. Because at least in my opinion, for GTA 5, once you get past a certain point, there's not really a lot to do. You kind of just end up doing a lot of the same missions over and over again. And I feel like it's really hard to stay interested in the game because I feel like there's not enough to
Yeah,
keep
but I mean,
people interested.
there's still a lot of mainstream streamers I know that still play that game. Even it's honestly wild. I mean,
Well,
just what they do and
I guess that is true. If you have like if you have like a good friend, group of friends to like play with,
They
then
have
I
the
mean,
Minecraft
I mean, they're
effect,
pulling
man.
they're pulling in like 600 viewers just playing GTA. I honestly could. It was just like a couple of days ago. I couldn't believe it.
I feel like the thing with GTA 5 was it just when it first dropped, there wasn't enough content in the game. Like it took so many updates and so much like DLC to actually make it more enjoyable. I feel like they should have actually released the game with more of what they have now. which would have made it a better game. Plus, adding more on top of that would have made it even more fun because I feel like it was really lacking whenever they first dropped it. So a lot of people lost interest in it really quick.
Yeah, but I mean, you look at the
Absolutely.
stats and how much money that it's grossed over the years too. I mean, there's people that play that game nonstop. I mean, sure, there's going to be some people that don't like it, but I mean, GTA 5. I mean, look at the stats. I mean, the money they reel in is just insane.
I mean, if we're gonna play stats, we can also look at League of Legends. League
Yeah.
of Legends
Oh.
has created pools of money and competitions that
yeah.
have
Okay.
funded
And then
entire people's
Overwatch. I mean,
careers.
if we're going there, I mean, look at Overwatch. Overwatch is
Okay,
killing
and
it. I mean,
in GTA, if I'm correct, they make most of their money off shark. And then in League of Legends, I think it's raid points, or is that Dota?
Actually correct. For League of Legends, it's riot points. It's RP for short.
Oh,
I finally got something right.
that's almost like RuneScape even too. But I mean, I know that's way before this decade though.
I think it was before this decade actually. I'm not sure.
We got any RuneScapers up in here? Because I know a lot of people play that too.
Should
Let
I
me
should I
check.
get it? Okay, should I get
I
into
missed that.
RuneScape?
As weird as that sounds, but like,
Guys, I just realized there's one game nobody talked about, and it's probably because most people actually forgot it came around 2010, which is Mario Galaxy 2.
Oh, that was 2010.
That was 2010. I thought
Apparently,
that was
yeah.
like 27. Oh man.
Well, I do believe the first Mario Galaxy appeared approximately in 2008, if I'm correct, or 2007. And it did take a few years until the second came,
Yeah,
and it
May
was
23rd.
also around the end of the Wii era, I believe.
Yeah, it came out at the very end, like the very end of the Wii's lifespan. But I mean, the Wii is still super sold. Like, even though they stopped development of them and they don't produce them anymore, they're still being sold, like on eBay, just
yeah.
daily.
Yeah, I just bought one on Amazon like half a year ago.
Now,
Yeah, exactly.
I've had a like an original first-hand Wii for like 5 years now, and it hasn't degraded at all. And I think that's a real selling point for the Wii. It just never gets old.
Yeah, I have to agree with that because I actually set up my Wii a week ago because we bought Just Dance 2020. So we set it up in the living room and it works completely fine. And we bought that when the Wii came out. It's a day one Wii and it functions perfectly.
Not to
Day
mention
one
it
Wii actually had problems, and it's probably one of the most sold consoles, I believe, of 2000
PS2.
of this decade.
Ah.
Wait, was the PS2 still
Yeah.
selling this decade?
I don't know.
Like brand
eBay,
new?
of
Not
course.
this decade. I think they stopped the production.
Yeah, they stopped production.
Because the Wii did stop around what, probably 2012, perhaps? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
I
broke my
definitely-
Wii.
And I just looked for RuneScape, and it came out in 2001. Wrong era, buddy.
Yeah, I knew it wasn't in this decade.
Wait, what?
RuneScape was released in 2001 when someone brought RuneScape out.
Well, you could say the new RuneScape like rework or brought to phone.
because there's RuneScape old school, and then
Oh,
RuneScape. Now,
RuneScape
What I-
Classic.
what I love is the new Doom reboot. I think it's as close as you can get to like a perfect reboot.
Doom was right. Doom was right.
I did hear a lot of good things about Doom, and I think it is a really good remake, like kind of to bring it to like the next generation of consoles. I think they did do a very good job with Doom.
See, my
Yeah.
only experience with Doom Classics were beating them on it really jankily by playing them on a 3DS. So, playing with a mouse and keyboard, no matter what, is fine by me.
I think Doom fell out also. Like, it was definitely one of the better games to come out.
Mhm.
I only hear good things about Doom, raving about it, but it's really weird to see how a lot of these really, really good games can just be really good games and not really contribute more than that.
I mean, we can see that with, like, all right, the Rainbow Six series. They've implemented new mechanics that weren't really explored beforehand. Only explored in like Metal Gear Solid and games of that sort. But any other mainstream game, you don't really have those same mechanics available.
Yeah.
Like the
Hey,
only other game that
Nemo.
comes to mind. Hi, hello.
What was your favorite game of the decade? You never talked about it.
I never did. You're right, because I'm a terrible host. Well, I'd say for me personally, it might be Age of Empires 2. It came out in the later of 2013, I believe. And just after I played Age of Empires 2, I got into the Civ 5 train. I played all of these strategy games. But I mean, it just has a very nostalgic part in my childhood, along with like the Siege games, and that's why it comes to mind because they've done so much for gaming, but they haven't really been implemented in other games.
Now, what do you guys think about the lateral movement from single player to multiplayer in the Siege series?
That's a good question. I mean, all right, Rainbow Six, which one? The second one had multiplayer. I didn't play the first one all too much, but the second one had multiplayer, and you could go through, different game modes and terrorist hunt, and you just play together. There was just no versus mode. That's really the only thing that took away from it.
Yeah, I'm just the old Rainbow Sixes on the PlayStation Classic.
Oh.
Those I think is where the game's AI
Mhm.
and single player mechanics really shine, because you get to see this complicated AI that you could have breach doors, throw flashbangs, and it acts as if it was a real player at that time. And it added all these like new mechanics. It just added them to
Mhm.
the life of gaming. It added repelling. That was one of the first times repelling was in a game. It added like player control over AI.
Yeah, it didn't have like pre-coded routes, or even if it did, it wouldn't be the same coded routes. It'd have different, paths it could take, like really make it seem, oh, this is real life. I'm actually doing some strategy here. I'm actually like in war. I'm in the battle.
I don't think it was rather war, but SWAT team operations and undercover operations.
It was undercover operations. I mean, there were in the second one again. That one did take place with some like war-esque vibes, where it's like, oh, we gotta take this hostage, but it's covert, so it's like Delta Force type, like behind the scenes. Like no one
Dang it! Now all I can think
can know
about is
about
the
this, so
Delta
no
crew on
survivors.
airplanes.
That's kind of what I meant by war. It's like we're in the background.
Like you, you said your favorite game of the decade was God of War 2, if I recall correctly. I was wondering your opinion on how that game stacks up relative to other games of its kind, and maybe how well it's aged as well.
I I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
I said, how well do you think it stacks up against other games of its kind, its genre, and how well you think it's aged as well?
Well, I definitely I didn't say God of War 2. I might have said God of War 2. I meant God of War 4.
Okay.
The newest one that came out like 2 years ago. I mean, I didn't start playing it when it first came out. I started playing it this year. So I guess I can't really say anything much in terms of like how it's aged, because I started playing it relatively late. I think it does stack up very well uh against other games of its genre, because like I said, it's a very good example of basically like perfect execution in terms of combat, in terms of story. And another thing that I really liked about it was you know how like whenever you go into a cutscene in any like RPG, you can tell exactly when you're going into a cutscene.
Yeah.
Like you kind of like you walk into an area, it'll like cut to black or something, or you go into cutscene, or like the graphics will change in some games. God of War, I think God of War 4 did an amazing job of kind of putting the cutscenes together to where it doesn't interrupt the flow of the game, but also not relying too heavily on cutscenes to as like basically like lore dumps. It'll give you like what you need for that moment. And if it can, it'll even knock out some of the lore during gameplay, like as you're walking down a trail, like Kratos will talk to Atreus and they'll talk about like lore and all
Yeah.
of that.
Starting off of your point, do you think the cutscenes use the in-game engine, or do you mean like when you said it flows really naturally?
I mean, I think it uses.
It might be a testament to the directing of the cutscenes and how they can really be played almost seamlessly between the gameplay.
Yeah, like for example, there's a scene where like Kratos is sailing down the river to go get like go grab a weapon so he can like go to hell or whatever, so that he can go get something that'll help his son. As he's sailing down this river and you start off controlling it, you'll notice that like the camera angle will change and he'll, that's where the cutscene starts. But you don't even like realize the cutscene started until it's already there. And I think Nemo and Domain had a couple suggestions.
Yeah, when you're talking about how they are seamless between like gameplay and the cutscenes, I think Spider-Man PS4 did a great job with that as well. I'm not like saying God of War 4 didn't do just as well. I'm just saying like that's another game. It's not the contender to say that did it. And Mr. Domain has also said Breath of the Wild could be put in that same boat.
Yeah.
One of my favorite parts of Breath of the Wild that I feel like has sort of been lost in game design nowadays is how if you really want to, for whatever reason, if you want to start the game and just go straight to Ganondorf and get your ass kicked, you can. It lets you do that. I really like it when games let you like really go wherever you want. Like the only other example I know of that is a game called Mega Man Battle Network, another RPG, where as soon as one of the earliest chapters in the game, you can go to the one of the latest game like post game areas. Do you guys know of any other games like that that let you do that?
I don't know of
No,
any
not
games that
Skyrim
really let you
RPG?
do.
Just a quick question about that though. I thought you had to get the glider from the old man that Ganondorf actually is to actually get to Ganondorf.
Isn't that still pretty early on in the game though?
Yeah, but considering that I never actually got past that part before trading in my Switch for a PC.
Ah.
All right, let's pause these thoughts. We have another person in the group right now. Skinny Lizard, just give us your Twitter ID and your YouTube, and just say what your favorite game of the decade was, personally. Okay.
Amazing. I love him.
My favorite.
I feel like I screwed up. Oh, he's just listening. Oh, okay. All right. We can carry on.
You mentioned like seamless interaction between cutscenes and gameplay. I think another game. I don't think it was this. Might have been. I don't think it was this decade. Well, no, it definitely wasn't. Never mind. What about The Last of Us?
Ooh. I mean, honestly, that could go just for game of like it was such a great game altogether, and that is also a big part. But I did have a lot of fading effects that went into the cutscenes, though. It faded in and out a lot. So, I mean, for seamless, maybe not so much, but for a great game, I definitely say it's a contender.
I would even agree that like Last of Us is definitely a great contender for Game of the Year. I think they did that game very well.
Like you're a little quiet. Can you raise your mic a little bit?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just said that quite. Sorry.
A little bit.
I was just saying that I agree that The Last of Us is another like really good contender for Game of the Year.
There you go. You sound a lot clearer now.
What about horror games?
I know Resident Evil 2 got a remake. Did anyone else play that?
I played it. It's fantastic. It honestly does do it justice.
I messed around with the original Resident Evil a little bit, and I think a major improvement between the two games just visually was the amount of fog and how you could see through that.
Yeah, they didn't like trash the atmosphere at all, and like all the mechanics still felt true to the original.
Because a lot of the time when a classic game gets remastered, like you're excited, but you're also like you might die on the inside because there's always the chance that they'll mess it up, as we've seen with some games. But Resident Evil 2 has a pretty overwhelmingly positive reception, if I recall correctly. Hasn't gotten remade since the GameCube one.
Yeah, I haven't heard too many people saying anything negative about it, to be honest.
Out of curiosity, was Outlast released this decade?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
But now
That
you
was
say
a really
Outlast,
amazing horror game, I believe.
Outlast is a horror game.
it was also indie.
Yeah.
Don't like so we could also put that with indies. It could have been like the best indie game that has come out, but
I think
'cause
Outlast did a. Sorry, you go.
Outlast has actually affected Outlast and Amnesia. Both of those games have definitely changed the way that this decade's horror stories have worked.
Really puts a sense of helplessness into you when you play the game, and that's what I love most about Outlast. I'm really not into horror games. I'm really bad at them because I get scared really easily. And I think the game that really did it to me the most was Outlast, because other games they give you kind of a way to like fight back or figure out a way to problem solve, but Outlast was just a journey of terror and fear and running away. There's nothing more you could do but hide and run. And I think that really fits well with kind of a horror game, kind of like how movies usually project the main character as they must hide, and they always feel like you watch it and there's nothing you can do about it. And then playing Outlast kind of gave you that same sense of there's still nothing I can do, even though I am controlling.
And on the flip side of that, I mean, we have like The Evil Within, which is a great horror game, but they also give you the ability to fight back and like you have guns. But because of that, it like halfway through the game you realize, oh, there's nothing to be scared of anymore. Like halfway through the game, you realize that it's really not that terrifying
See,
because you have a means to fight back.
I don't dare play any horror games because I'm just too scared of them. So, but all I have to say is that so far all the horror games I've seen on YouTube and such, they just look beautiful.
What about Dead Space? You guys ever played Dead Space or the second one?
I've heard of it, but I haven't actually played it.
Yeah,
Dead
I've
Space
heard
I've
and
wanted
played
to
it.
play.
This is one of those games. It's just so fun.
I
Like,
love
the
Dead
farther
Space
you go, the better
lore.
it gets, kind of.
I love Space lore, not the game itself.
I think we've talked about like all these genres of different games of the year, but what is the overall best game of the decade?
Look, getting everyone to agree on that one.
Yeah, that's
I think what are some contenders
Minecraft.
that we can?
I can only Minecraft's the only one I can think of that I can honestly just 100% put my faith into it, saying, yeah, this can be it. This is the end all is all for this decade.
I mean, I got my choice, but if anybody,
I don't think I could debate Minecraft. I think Minecraft is there.
See, I can't go with Minecraft simply because I just can't find it enjoyable anymore. So, and I always found it to be a little monotonous unless you're playing with friends and multiplayer, and that wasn't really too common at my age when I first played Minecraft. So it just wasn't as enjoyable for me. So I think I'm gonna, yeah.
Well, I do think Minecraft is a really good game. I guess for me personally, I think there is a bit of a problem with it becoming monotonous unless you're playing with friends. I think I would actually still stick with God of War and actually in The Last of Us as well. Both being probably, at least in my opinion, the best contenders for game of the game of the decade.
All right. If we can't agree on Minecraft, then I have to say Last of Us. Yeah.
I do think
for sheer storytelling.
I do think that Minecraft is probably the best game of the decade, to be honest. Like, it's just really hard to say that there's other game that is rivalizing that masterpiece in some ways. There's so many possibilities within the game. I believe it's also one of the biggest map there is in any video games in general, if I'm correct. And there's
go ahead.
oh my
I
bad.
think
And there's so many possibility within the game that it can be used just for like everything in general. I mean, I believe there was even sometime once someone that was able to like to transfer a FaceTime call into freaking Minecraft. I mean, there's all kind of stuff that can be made within the game.
I mean, I know it started the whole building, like Fortnite. I'm sure. I mean, just like you can build with friends and stuff.
When Fortnite first came out, people were like comparing it to Minecraft. It's like, oh, it's Minecraft but with guns because you get to build stuff and you get to shoot people.
Facts.
Now, what would make me now, even though I was debating against Minecraft, what makes me like Minecraft overall, I wouldn't say it's the best game, but is just the modability, how many mods, and how everyone can kind of add to the game in their own way.
It's completely customizable. Like you can personalize it to your own means. It's completely expandable. There's no stopping that game from being whatever you want it to be.
I think in that case, if we can't agree on Minecraft, my personal pick would be Skyrim. Skyrim was a game that was, when it was released, it was just the game for me. It was
Yeah, I was waiting
beautiful.
for
It
somebody
was
to say
fun.
Skyrim. That's what I was saying.
That story captivated me for hundreds of hours, and I still go back through and play it. I'll download mods, and the mod support for that community is just it's an immortal game. It's very much like Minecraft's Immortal, where it's an infinite possibilities. Skyrim is just so supported, so loved that it does not die. There are hundreds of mods. You can add new story, new characters, new weapons. You can change the game completely in what it was, and you can also change the visuals now to make it better than it was. I think it's a game that has become immortal in a sense, has been re-released in almost every single platform, be it from, the Alexa to VR. It's just
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, Skyrim being an RPG, how fun it was. I mean, in high school, you know what I mean. You get out of school and you go play Skyrim on your Xbox. Like,
Be
some of the
sure.
best times of my life.
I do know a lot of people who'd say The Elder Scrolls V is one of those games where you really can do anything and lose hundreds of hours into this giant open world where I think I heard the game has a lot of combat like options as well, and you can really like there's no linear story, or you can't really, or sorry, you're not really like a good or bad guy. You can just sort of like choose to go about the world however you want.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that sort of design.
but I mean, also another game. No, but I haven't heard nobody say it, and I mean, I know it's not everybody's favorite game, but like somebody that's always loved Bungie. I mean, Reach was alright. Like I beat every single Halo on Legendary. Like I'm just gonna most flex right now, boys. Like
I mean,
Legendary.
honestly, when it comes to Reach, that's like Reach is when games started to patch games a lot more. Like on console, patching games was like once a month. But when Reach came out, it was like every few days they'd release a patch. They'd update that game. They made sure it was balanced. They made sure the players would actually enjoy the game.
Yeah, like I mean, Halo 3. Oh man, that'd be like my main pick all day. But Reach was it opened opportunities.
It definitely did.
Man, where's Bungie at? They need to come out. Was they making the new one this year, right? On the new Xbox?
Yeah, Xbox
Let's go.
Series X.
Where
Yeah,
at?
Reach came out in 2010, so I think as a Halo game, kind of representing that whole
Somebody
genre.
who loves Master Spartan used to draw him in art class once again in high school. I mean,
I've watched documentaries on the development team behind the Halo,
Dude,
their whole
yeah.
process, and they
even the
were
orchestra. I mean,
yeah,
everything.
they're very committed as a development team, and I think they did push that almost bi-daily updates, and it kind of set a new standard for quality of games for early 2000s of
Yeah.
don't
Now-
release crap, make it good.
I mean, the
Another-
MLG battles back in the day. I mean, just all those things that Halo opened up the door to.
Yeah, like to quote like Shigeru Miyamoto, like a rushed game will always be bad, but a delayed game could always be good.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That is a fantastic quote. Yes.
Yeah.
I think
Can't
a
vouch.
big thing that Halo Reach brought is that it's starting a new trend. Halo in general is starting a new trend of porting console games that used to previously be only on console over to computer, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's breaking the boundaries between like the console wars. It's recently we've been ending the console wars. Like there's cross-platform with Call of Duty and Fortnite, Minecraft now between PS4 and Xbox, and also with the
And
PC.
let's hope Apex is next.
We've obtained peace, is what you're saying.
Almost.
We went through a
Because-
depression, and now we're coming back into life where everybody can enjoy high graphics.
Together in harmony.
Mm-hmm. Truly
But
beautiful.
only PCs get far render distance.
Oh, okay. There's PC Master Race again.
I had to ruin it.
I mean, on Minecraft for Xbox One Elite, you can do far render distance. So Just fun fact, throwing it out there.
Xbox Series X is going to be at ray tracing as well.
Getting rid of the. I forgot what it's called. I'm gonna stop talking now.
FPS is what you mean because ray tracing kills your FPS.
Yeah. It's been a long day.
One topic I was thinking is, by the way, I'd have to vote Skyrim for best game of the decade, but I was wondering what everyone's runner-ups were, like your semi-favorite of the decade. That would be
Honorable mention.
starting from the top to bottom. So, Plaid.
Give me a second to come back to me.
Right. While he's doing that, Faded, you got anything or?
Yeah, I touched on it in the beginning. Is I think CS:GO would be a runner-up for me for game of the decade, not as a game, but as just the work it put into pushing that esports genre, making it a career for people, putting just a lot of content out there. It definitely helped a lot with the debate of is esports a sport, and then Fortnite picked up on that once it's established itself big enough to have those grand prize pools of 3 million for the top winner, to even make it a debate saying, hey, is it a sport? And now you can debate it and say, well, some 16-year-old lucky kid just won 3 million from it, so if it's not a career, I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Like before games like CS:GO, when you think esports, it was mostly just fighting games, but
MLG.
CS:GO really made the esports branch out in that sense.
Yo, did you guys already pass me?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, my bad.
Plaid, do you have anything yet?
Yeah, I'd say my runner-up would be The Escapists. It's
Ooh.
a prison escape game, and it was a great introductory game to just everything on Steam.
Interesting. I heard that got a sequel a little while ago, actually. Have you played that one yet? Is it any good?
It's multiplayer.
I haven't played it yet, simply out of spending too much money on other games, but
I can relate.
It's a great game. I've played it on some friends' computers. I'd say it's a great game, and could I have a second honorable mention with just naming the name of the game?
Nemo, is that alright with you?
Yeah, no, go for it.
Kerbal Space Program.
Oh, what's this about?
Yeah, I've never heard.
You send rockets to space and kill little green alien guys by messing up your rockets because
It's basically
nobody's good at aerodynamics.
Yeah, like an aerodynamic sandbox with spaceships. You just kind of build your spaceship. You get budgets. Very much like Sandbox, but like it's almost like the NASA version of Sims, except you're terrible aerodynamics, and we all know it. And you just end up murdering all of your test subjects. I mean, astronauts, not test
It's
subjects.
not rocket science,
But it is.
But it is.
Oh, you. For my runner-up, I mentioned this once, but I have to go with Cuphead. The animation style is out of this world. It went through a lot of development hell. I think it took them like 3 years before they could actually release it after showing it at E3. I want to say E3 2014. Don't quote me on that. Studio MDHR, by sort of paralleling the animation style from the 1930s and making a successful run and gun boss rush style game out of it, which I've always loved boss rush games. A good boss fight is worth the world to me. So to see them like not just have a callback to that animation style, but also bring new life into the run and gun genre, I appreciate like mad. For how short it is, it's very challenging. It's very fun, whether you're watching it or you're playing it. Easy pick for me.
For a game made in 24 FPS, it's really nice.
Yeah, I think the FPS also adds to the aesthetic of it as well.
Okay. Like you want to go while iFlix is muted?
Oh yeah. I'll admit, this one's gonna be heavily biased. But honestly, for me,
Yo, I'm ready for whatever.
Oh, you want to go first?
Go ahead, iFlix.
No,
We're
it's
all-
cool. I was just saying.
Okay.
Alright.
I'll admit.
All right, like you. Let's just go.
All right. I'll admit I'm hugely biased because I'm a fanboy of this series. For me, it was Kingdom Hearts 3, and definitely something that played into it was their attempt to improve, like how much they improved over their past games, and them listening to their fans and saying, "Hey, we're actually listening to you guys. We're gonna bring in some of the stuff that you guys like." I think there are a lot of flaws with that game, but again, I'm just a fanboy for the series, so this is a biased opinion for my runner-up.
I did hear that Kingdom Hearts was 3 was a very controversial game in some areas. I can't speak much on the topic myself. I only played Kingdom Hearts 365 over 2 days on the DS, but I know that's it's nice to see a series like that as creative and whimsical as that still up and running. Very fun RPG, great characters.
I think.
Anyway, iFlix, you're up. Flix.
Yeah, my bad. I'm here.
All right.
Yeah, my runner-up. I mean, if I had to vote, I'm gonna vote for Skyrim. And probably my runner-up's just gonna be Fortnite, just because of how much outlets, how many doors the Fortnite's open. I know it sounds pretty crazy that it just came out like 2 years ago, but I mean, it's helped fellow streamers, to get the notary, like Ninja. I mean, think about all the streamers. How YouTube just got a streamer, Courage JD. We got Mixer because of Ninja, sell out, whatever.
I like
we got
Mixer.
Twitch. You say what?
I like Mixer though.
I got a Mixer. I watch plenty of streamers on Mixer. I'm just saying, it's opened up that door so that, and then you got Offset making Caffeine soon, which is also going to be a new streaming. I mean, there's just all this stuff that Fortnite's literally open, and I think they're about to make like a TV show out of it. Because I mean, who's it? Epic tweeted out asking if Fortnite's more than a game in a year. I mean, that's crazy stuff. I mean, look at all the stuff, the in-game events, Star Wars. I mean, the list goes on and on. But I mean, that's my choices. Go ahead. Hello?
I think Anila's next.
Oh, all right. Hi. Yeah. Okay. So my all right. So if we're gonna, a majority of us said Minecraft was number one, right? Not all of us, but majority of us said that. So if it was gonna be a runner up to that, I'd have to say League of Legends. No, Mr. Ben, you're going right after me. Yeah. League of Legends. I don't know, just based off of like the economy of it, I think that's why I put it as the runner up for Minecraft.
Nice, a good choice. I know the game did make a lot of impact on the MMORPG sort of genre. So, Mr.
pretty
Mint,
much
you're
Dino,
up now.
though.
Yeah,
Oh,
Miss.
I'm up. So I would say one of the runner-up. Okay, I'm gonna be saying something that might be kind of off for some of you. It's also one of my personal favorite this year, and it is Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Like, there is so much content to this game. It was the most sold fighting game that there was in the history of fighting games so far. As it did outplace this no in 2019 Street Fighter 2, which had different games, different republishment of that game, such as one on the Switch, I think in around 2016. And there's just so much content. If we're to talk about music, there's like 100 of hours of music that in the game. I think there's around 1,000 pieces of unique composition in the game. Then there's a stage builder mode, more than 70 characters in the game. There's just so much to mess with, and it did, and also that genre did give a lot of room to other content creators such as Brawl Allah, Rival of Eaters, and a few others game developers that went with the Smash fighting style and just made it
Wow.
their own. So I would
It
say
really did change the landscape. Go ahead.
So I would just say that probably in terms of fighting games, in my opinion, Smash was probably one of the biggest like inspiration, and it did give a lot of room to other content creators, such as, for example, it did give the creators of Undertale a place into Smash as a Mii costume with the Mii Gunner. And for the creator of Shantae, they did give her a pin in the game. For example, the players, when they play online and they go into public arenas, they can have a pin of Shantae, for example. And I will always remember at first when there was an amiibo of Shovel Knight, which was basically the first amiibo that was made for a non-Smash game. Everyone thought that, well, it was going to be a Smash character. So basically, Smash was basically a big opening for a lot of other companies just to put their own characters in Smash and somewhat advertise while just having fun with a really well-built game.
Yeah, not gonna lie. I'm not sure how we got an hour and 50 minutes into this without mentioning Smash Ultimate. One thing you have to put into perspective is one thing I want to say: 70 fighters. As a person who plays a load of fighting games, Guilty Gear, Arcana Heart, Blaze Blue, Under Night in Birth, all the time, most of these games have never more than like 30 or so. So to have 70 more than 70 playable characters and still have all that content and all that music and all the stages, it makes me legitimately wonder how they fit that much in the game. Masahiro Sakurai is a madman.
He is, to be honest. And one thing that is even more surprising is that in terms of content, like in terms of space, I believe the game is only like 15 gigabytes, which is not that much comparing to a lot of the other recent games that was published this decade, I think.
There's other games that have been like that are derived from that. So many characters are coming into it. Everyone is here, as seen by Mr. Domain in the chat. He's been spamming this. 450 characters.
God.
Blues.
So there's like Blue's Clues and Steve, guys from just random Disney shows and video games. Got Shia LaBeouf and
How do we not mention Red Dead yet?
yeah, Red Dead
That
Man.
That's true.
I'm not gonna
There's-
lie, I would so main Randall from Monsters Inc. Is that his name? I'm almost
Yeah, I
certain.
think it's Randall, and
That guy's overpowered. Nerf.
His down
he can
smash
turn
covers
invisible.
My
up
personal favorite
half
would
the
be the
screen.
kid that has the power of God and
Phases out of existence.
His down smash isn't even fair, man. Just makes you scream in fear.
But
Mr.
anyway,
Domain is
Dyslexic
asking-
Bear, you're up. Your runner-up favorite game of the decade.
Personally, my runner-up, I'm actually gonna have to go with Borderlands 2,
Ooh.
which, of course, if people don't know, is an action role-playing first-person shooter game, which is absolutely fun to play. There's multiple characters that you can choose to play from, level up, run and gun, and with a really fun story with plenty of DLC to actually keep it going. And going back to the VR now, actually, Borderlands 2 is now available in VR, which I think is pretty cool. So, I mean, for people that love games where pretty much it's just run, gun, and loot, and it's one of those games that you can really enjoy just playing by yourself or playing with a group of people, especially with the characters that you can really play with and level up in the skill tree, uh, with pretty much however way you really want to do it because of just how many options you have, and you can kind of go your own route. And depending on if you like playing with people or solo playing, you can basically deck out the characters that you'd like to. Plus, the DLC is super fun, and actually, Borderlands 2 is one of 2K's best-selling games.
Interesting. Would you say it's great because it's innovative or just because it's fundamentally very well structured, like put together?
Kind of a mixture of both, because especially of how much they've actually updated into actually improving the game, like the inventory management, which isn't perfect, but they've worked on it, and the amount of updates that they've added into the game to actually improve it overall. I feel like they've done a very, very great job with it. Um, and leading off from Borderlands 2, of course, going into Borderlands 3, another game I enjoy, of course.
Nice.
I mean, Borderlands 2 I think it was very innovative, to be honest, because Borderlands 2, like this loot and shooter, after that it came to Destiny and Warframe and all of these other games. So I mean, I think it did launch like a little subgenre of shooters.
Yeah, most definitely.
Um, but now that we have everyone's like runner-ups for the best of the decade, all right, let's go on the opposite route. Now that we've kicked this horse,
God.
what's the worst? What's the
Uh,
worst of the decade?
I have a feeling a bloodbath is about to be unleashed.
You
Someone's
want
gonna
to
solve
unmute
someone else's
Plaid
favorite
for
game.
that first?
No Man's Sky.
Hey,
I'm
we
ready.
might want to
I'm ready
unmute
for the
Plaid
war.
so you can talk.
Yeah, Plaid.
He's server muted. One of the admins or staff's got to unmute him.
Isn't
Oh.
he staff? Okay, he's unmuted. We're good.
Okay.
Plaid, your least favorite / worst game of the decade you played, and
I have
why?
to think on that. It's gotta be Roblox.
Really?
Really?
That is.
See,
Uh,
where I was going to
Well,
school, Roblox was a giant thing, and well,
What's
Roblox is still a big thing now, and I messed up years again. Something I've done a lot.
So
Yeah,
that game is from
2006.
2006.
I think
It's
the worst
okay.
game I've played this year then is this decade then is Fortnite. I just never liked it. I don't like battle royale games in general because it's new start every single time. You don't really keep any progress, and I've never really been able to live with that.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I hate Fortnite because I get killed and then people do the take the L dance on me.
I can second that one.
I don't like the game, but I love the development team behind Fortnite because like I've had issues where they've updated it and like it messed with my Xbox. And I sent in like a ticket like, hey, can you zoom out the HUD a bit because you don't have the option? And like within 24 hours, the HUD was fixed for me.
Yeah,
Faded,
their customer support's pretty good too. I think didn't they get that nominee or something? They get the award this year
I don't know.
for best customer service or something like that.
I'm
Oh,
not so sure
definitely.
about that, but I mean that would make sense. I know who would
Definitely
not get
understand
that. Ubisoft would not get that.
Ubisoft was good for making an example of what not to do.
Yeah, it's
Same thing with EA.
Oh yeah, actually, EA would have been a better example. But how about anyone else? So we have Fortnite.
Oh,
Does that
For
count as a
me,
segment?
I'm gonna
I
say
know that Faded over here.
it's gonna be No
Go
Man's
ahead.
Sky and State of Decay 2. Now I'm gonna defend State of Decay 2 and reason why, but for No Man's Sky, I've really despised the lying. I think any game that like lies to you to get you to buy it is never gonna earn that respect of being a game. I think it takes a lot of work to even get back the okay, maybe it's fine to play. Like Destiny forever had that same kind of like grudge in my heart.
Although to be fair, I read an article on this once regarding Destiny. That a lot of the bad things that came out of Destiny were due to Activision.
Yeah, I know it was Activision,
And then
but
after they
I
left,
still had that. Yeah, after they left, they made it free to play, which is basically them just having a party celebrating it, and I got back into it.
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
To talk about
Oh, go ahead.
talk about like State of Decay. The only reason I did not like State of Decay was I was really into the original one, and when I heard of a second game coming out that I could play with my friends, like whole nother State of Decay, I was really excited for it. We got it, from the Game Pass, got right into it. It was just a port. It was just a port with like multiplayer. That's what it felt like. It looked identical to the same game released years prior, and it was really buggy and glitchy through the whole experience.
Can
I
y'all hear
can't.
me?
Yeah. But I can't say that State of Decay 2 was like it was glitchy and it had all these downfalls. But when it comes to the end of the day, games are really supposed to have fun. and I had loads of fun playing that game. That's why I can't be comfortable saying it was worst game of the decade, because I just had so much fun, just hours spent into it. Even
It was just
when
a game that
glitched my progress.
disappointed me. Like,
Yeah,
just because
because-
I had such high expectations of another State of Decay. I
Mm-hmm.
I definitely don't think it's the worst game of the decade or a terrible game of the decade, but I felt like it was done wrong, you know? It was like a
Mhm.
bad breakup.
It's like the disappointment of the decade for you.
Like, I'm not even gonna get on Destiny because I could probably talk about that for the whole duration of a podcast.
hell
'Cause
yeah.
Destiny has like a hate in my heart that I've never felt over
What?
anything.
Same,
Mind
same.
you,
Yo,
I played it.
Destiny ain't bad, bro.
I played it from beta, the original data, from
Yeah.
beta up until like the ends of like year 2. Had maxed out characters, and then they were just like, "Yeah, we're gonna scrap that because you already spent like over $100 and something bucks on DLC." And hey, here's a new game with none of that content and none of that fun for a
That
full
month's already
price.
over.
I hate Activision so much, and that hate in my heart was so. I've seen Destiny on like shelves for like $2, and I still thought that was too much to pay.
Destiny 2 ain't bad though.
No, it's not bad now. Now the new update. I had to have a
Yeah.
friend come over to my house and press the download button because he wanted me to play because I would physically not touch it. That's how much hate I had in my heart.
I think something with Activision is like adopting that EA mindset, or maybe they already had. I just didn't really.
It's that EA mindset. boy.
They just spent too much
That
money
EA
on
mindset.
Destiny, and then they wanted all that money back like that, and I hate them. I hate
Oh
it.
yeah,
and
no. With Destiny,
okay, we
they
gotta move
wanted
on.
you to buy
I'm
the
getting
game like
triggered.
4 times.
Yeah. I guess Destiny is a good topic for another podcast. So
I am
know,
shaking right now.
I got
okay.
Okay.
I got a
Okay,
game,
okay,
but
I
I don't know
got
how
you.
you guys. I don't know if you guys will feel about it. Sea of Thieves. That's the
I
game
like
I don't.
Sea of Thieves.
See,
It
I
was
knew it
boring.
was gonna touch some people, and I knew it.
I
But
love
I'm
that game.
gonna tell you, bub.
I'm just
Now
I'm
we
just an
got
RPer, man. I'm just a video game RPer, and that's why I loved it. I know there wasn't
I
a lot
feel
of
that.
content.
I
feel
never
that.
played Sea of
It's
Thieves, but
just
it always seemed-
I can't get into that. Like, I
I
don't
feel
know.
it's okay.
I've never
That's why
played
that would probably be. It is so weird because it's kind of mainstream, kind of not. But like, nah, bro.
Understandable, but Pirates Code would have me execute you. Just saying, bud. Don't make me at high seas, or
Good
you
luck,
will
bro.
go
Good
down,
luck with
and
that.
I will
I wish you good
emote
luck
on
with
your
that.
dead body.
I wish you good luck with
Yeah.
that. Good try. Good luck.
All right,
I'm
Laku.
level 500 mage.
All right, so we have Sea of Thieves, No Man's Sky, State of Decay 2. I'm not so on board with that one. And Fortnite.
Throw on Destiny for the first half of Destiny 2's life.
Okay, so the first quarter of Destiny's life. All right,
I'm gonna say
Half,
Watch Dogs for
not
my
quarter.
worst.
Watch Dogs. Oh, explain.
That's
Really?
a good
Which
I don't
one?
completely disagree, but I want to know your point.
Watch Dogs, I just really couldn't get into it. The gameplay just really was not that great. It was not really that brand new, innovative game. Above all, next gen. It really didn't deliver any of that. The graphics, I feel like, just weren't all there, and just entirely, I feel like the gameplay just really was not enjoyable whatsoever.
They removed the 4K graphics pack because console players couldn't play it, but I don't get why they did that for PC players. It does not make sense.
I kind of I agree with you in saying that Watch Dogs was definitely not a good.
Hey, Flicks, Mike.
Yo, what's up?
You're
Your mic.
fumbling around with a mic.
Oh, my bad. I'm muted.
But I have heard a lot of
At least-
disappointing things about Watch Dogs. I don't know. I can't speak for the sequel, but I know the first game had an extremely lukewarm reception, if I recall correctly.
Exactly. I heard the second one is actually pretty decent, but I was kind of killed by the first one. I never had the tendency to actually want to play the second one.
Well, one thing I really did like, actually, okay, I didn't play the first Watch Dogs, so I don't really know about that one. I did play the second one though. In my opinion, it kind of felt like a copy of GTA with a slight twist. However, I do think that their twist of like, hey, you got to use like, drones. You can scope out your the areas that you're trying to raid. Sorry, I talked without thinking there for a second, so I have no idea what I just said. But I guess having it focus more on stealth was definitely a really good thing. You could use you could use like little RC cars or you could use RC planes to kind of help you scope everything out. I think it was a little bit more strategic, but overall it felt like a GTA clone.
I need some help, like really quickly. Can you all go in that straw poll and just vote Luke? I just want to. It's for admin in a Discord. I just want to. I'm like losing right now.
I'm a little late on that.
Where are we going?
Okay.
So, wait. We vote Leo, right?
No. Oh, my friend already
Wait.
put it in a Beat Saber Discord and said
which,
vote Leo.
which chat?
It's a separate Discord completely.
Oh, never mind. Okay.
All right.
I vote
Hey.
Well-
Spirit.
Moving on.
All right, I must go back.
So my least favorite game of the decade, the worst I feel is a good way to word it. I'm gonna touch upon the elephant in the room here. Let's talk about mobile games. What do you think when you think mobile games?
I just
Raid Shadow Legends.
Yeah.
That's
Raid Shadow Legends has the
Not
most-
sponsored, surprisingly.
You could
Not
ask.
Sponsored by Raid
You
Shadow
could ask.
Legends.
It would definitely go through.
Then there's the trigger word, the microtransactions.
Whoa.
But
No,
what
okay.
Y'all hate
They're
on Raid Shadow Legends? Hold up.
Okay, so
Dude, it's #1 in the Google Play Store with over 1 million reviews. How can you hate on it with a
Well,
No,
I'm
I'm
5
not hating on it. I
They
played
have,
that
like, a
shit.
million
I played that shit.
YouTubers
What do you mean,
promoting
brother?
it.
I had to step in and say something. What?
It's 5 stars because John Tron got sponsored. Everyone wants to support him.
Bro, I'm like level 5 division, bro. I'm clapping.
There are
Alright,
hundreds of
I'm muting,
character
bro.
combinations
I'm
you
gonna
can
let
do
y'all
that makes the
talk.
gameplay seamless and enjoyable. Game of Decade mobile version?
we're
Definitely
gonna
Raid
continue
Shadow
this
Legends.
podcast, but first, a word from our sponsor, Raid
All right.
Shadow Legends.
Yeah. All right.
Um,
So we're
Not
Okay.
actually sponsored.
Not,
Yeah, no.
yeah,
not actually sponsored. No.
Please sponsor us.
He got muted halfway
Okay,
through.
yeah, stop.
All right. I mean,
not specifically with Raid Shadow Legends, but definitely like the not even just microtransactions. Mobile games, there are some games out there that will like try to trick you into paying weekly to play their game. Like, oh, you can get premium for like $5, and then it's like $5 every 2 days, and they'll like try to trick you into spending as much money as you can. I think actually mobile games are probably the worst case, in my opinion, of like people trying to like, or companies, I guess, trying to squeeze as much money from you as they possibly can. I think that's even worse than what EA has done or even what Activision has done. And it's just so blatantly obvious. Like, they don't even try to hide it. They just try to make sure they get as much money from you as they can, and they got no problem tricking you into it.
That's actually hella vouch, though. That's actually correct.
yeah.
It's like
I-
you're
I-
paying the same price on console, but with a small ass machine. Sorry for my language, but yeah.
Yeah?
Don't get me wrong. There are definitely a lot of really good mobile games out there. But I think mobile gaming in general, I feel like a lot of the really big games are just trying to squeeze as much money as they can.
Candy Crush, just to name one.
No, I think there's a couple. I think there's a genre of games that are okay for mobile, like just in general. Visual novels work fine on mobile.
Okay, so someone brought up in the chat, Leo brought up that Raid Shadow Legends has supported our YouTube creators, like on this platform that we are broadcasting this podcast on. We haven't seen YouTube show that kind of support to really anyone in this broadcasting streaming service, while Raid Shadow Legends have sponsored and given money, loads of money, to our favorite streamers. So, I mean, the game might not be all good, but at heart, I mean, they've supported this platform a lot.
Like this Discord? That's crazy.
No.
Awesome.
I
You mean
meant
Discord though?
not this Discord specifically. I meant the platform of YouTube. They have.
Yeah.
Welcome to Discord. You'll be able to message in 10 minutes, but first, a word from our sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid is a great MMORPG based on iPhones and Android.
I'm pretty sure that's a lawsuit,
God.
yo. That's a lawsuit, bro. Yo.
Again, not
Right.
sponsored.
Can
So,
they get upset with free advertising though?
think everyone can agree here that microtransactions suck, but what if I told you that there is a mobile game that is one of the worst and it doesn't have any microtransactions at all? Would you believe me?
No.
Yes.
Guess what? It exists. And it's called Mega Man X on iOS. So, a bit of background history. I love Mega Man and I love Mega Man X. It is a Super Nintendo classic. It has great music. Leo in chat. It has awesome boss fights, lots great atmosphere, all that good stuff. Tons of different weapons, you name it. So, for some reason, whoever was they wanted to adapt it on an iPhone, but they couldn't just adapt the game, so they redrew it from the ground up, and it released in 2011. And a quick Google search will have you believe it looks like shit, and you're totally right, because the stiff animations, the this obvious lack of polish in the everything from the life bar to the weapons to the characters. It is probably not the worst game of the decade, but it is the biggest waste of time and the biggest disappointment I have to vote for. So there you go. Worst mobile game ever. Doesn't even have microtransactions.
Man, we were really on this train of it has to, just take every dollar out of your pocket.
I mean, that's what it seems like a lot of games are starting to, do now, and nobody's really trying to hide it anymore. They're just like, give us your money, we're gonna make you pay if we're a mobile game, we're gonna make you pay $25 like a week to play our game, and if we're a console game, we're gonna make you purchase our game like 6 times.
Where's the money, Wabowski?
I told you guys, I mean Randall. Watch out.
So what's his down B exactly?
Come again?
What's Randall's down B?
His down special. Oh my god. So he not only turns invisible, but he can take the player to 999% instantly from anywhere on the screen. And it also acts as a recovery move, so he can grab the ledge. It also gives him invincibility for 20 seconds. It gives him an extra stock. It's absolutely insane.
All right, sorry. I'm realizing I asked the wrong question. What does his down B not do?
Oh, like you, help me out here.
It doesn't get a word from our sponsors. Read.
Read Shadow Legends.
What's going on?
Wait, okay, who's next for our worst game of the decade before we get sidetracked with Raid Shadow Legends?
Either iFlix or like you, whoever's ready first.
Worst game of the decade is Raid Shadow Legends.
All right.
All right, pretty straightforward. Next.
Licks? Well, what do you think?
We're doing worst what? Mobile
Worst game of the decade.
Okay, so
Game.
there's one game that no one has talked about so far.
Hold on, man.
So there's one game that no one has talked about so far, and it's Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival on the Wii U.
Oh, no.
No one has talked about that. It's basically the EA game that Nintendo made with Amiibos. It was so bad that all the goddamn Amiibos stayed up on the shelves for so long. Like legit, like for real. In my local stores, whenever I would look up for new Amiibos, there was none except the goddamn Animal Crossing Amiibos. Like they would never restock them because all the Animal Crossing would never sell. That was stupid.
You could give me a lifetime salary to buy anything I want, and I still wouldn't defend that in court. That game is really like Nintendo. I thought they were better than that.
And
But
go for it.
No, you go ahead.
And basically, the Animal Crossing's fan has waited so long for a brand new game from the genre, and the only one they basically got is the greatest joke of all in the franchise, which is the one on the Wii U, and it's basically just pure garbage. Like I don't even know what came into the developer's mind when they were making the game. Basically,
It's me. They're probably thinking like Animal Crossing's a popular series. Let's make money off of it by making this weird Mario Party looking knockoff that no one's going to buy. I don't know.
basically the mini games were bad. The amiibos were not that interesting, and no one was buying them. Why? Because the game was bad.
Exactly. iFlix, did you already go or?
Not yet.
All right.
Flicks, you there?
What's going on with that?
Yeah, my bad. Sorry. Yeah, I thought I said Sea of Thieves, but I mean, if we're talking like, I guess worst games, I'll say maybe Call of Duty Mobile.
I mean,
Or-
okay, the thing with Call of Duty Mobile is that I don't think it had a lot of great parts of it though. Like,
I mean, it was fun,
honestly,
but it's just something that I want to do every day. I
Mhm.
don't really know that many mobile games. I guess
I feel like
play a
I feel like it
couple.
was a quality game. I feel like that was one of the highest quality mobile games I've played.
Yeah, it ain't bad, but
I feel like between Fortnite Mobile and PUBG Mobile and Call of Duty Mobile, I'd probably play Call of Duty Mobile more than anything else.
yeah, but I mean, you don't play it though, do you?
Actually, I have it on both my iPad and my iPhone. Don't
Oh,
at me.
Flex.
Oh, see, I don't play that. I mean, if I got it on a console or PC, I mean, I'm playing it on that. I'm not gonna play on my little screen. Like how many
have
minutes do you
controller
play
support
that
now.
out your day? You know what I mean?
You can connect your controllers now and go ham.
Yeah, but who's gonna do that? I mean, you're getting like what 30 frames?
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't.
No, I don't really do it that much. Honestly,
Oh,
if I'm like
okay.
honestly just bored and don't really have much to play, then I'll just pull out like my PlayStation controller and just play it on my iPad or something, chilling on the couch.
Oh, see, I don't do that. I don't play mobile games like that. I mean, I play Raid, but that's about it.
Hey,
I mean,
Idea.
I said earlier the worst game of the year for me was Sea of Thieves. That's what I said. So
Which I can't, say you're not wrong because that was really boring for me. There's not enough content. But let's get back to mobile. Which one? Dyslexic Bear.
sure. Worst mobile game or game in general?
Worst
'Cause my
game in
worst,
general.
my worst game was Watch Dogs.
Oh no, mobile. We've already done.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, mobile games. Okay, well then, poop.
Wait, that PewDiePie's new game, right? That one?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
I mean, I could poop on Fortnite if I really wanted to, but I'm gonna have to go ahead and say Super Mario Run was a terrible mobile game.
Really? What
Mhm.
made that terrible?
With Super Mario Run, I felt like it had the complete like capability of actually being a pretty decent Mario game, but compared to everything else that Nintendo's actually released for Mario, I feel like Super Mario Run just wasn't there. The content in it wasn't really that great. The controls were really that usable, and in general, it just really wasn't as much enjoyable as compared to say playing, Super Mario Bros. And because it's a platformer, so it's a 2D game pretty much. But I feel like it just wasn't enjoyable as much as it really would have been, say, playing Super Mario Bros. Years ago.
Yeah, and what confuses me is they probably could have made a Mario game on mobile. You can have 2D platformers on a mobile device. Just look at the excellent Taxman and Stealth ports of Sonic 1 and 2 on Android and iOS. That's a great example of how to do a mobile game that's a 2D platformer, right? And the only microtransaction in the whole thing is you can pay 99 cents to remove ads. So I don't know why Nintendo didn't actually make like New Super Mario Bros. iOS or something like that.
They made a Super Mario Bros. iOS game though. It's like called the Super Mario Dash or something. It's not really good. It's pay to play more than like twice a day, but it's there.
Also when it comes to like older games like Mario, I don't know if any of you have played Chrono Trigger, but there's a port from like the PS1, PS2 to the phone, and it works fine. The graphics are great. It functions just like the normal game. So for games to, when developers are like, oh, it's too complicated. The graphics are gonna be bad anyways. Chrono Trigger, it was basic graphics, but it still worked great. Like everything functioned perfect on the mobile. So I think that's
Exactly.
just kind of a fluke when it comes to that.
Yeah, especially because like you said, Chrono Trigger, and also almost like half the Dragon Quest series is on iOS, and regardless of what you think about the art style, uh, it's all there. It works totally fine, and you know, mobile devices have gotten a lot stronger. So I think we can actually start getting quality games on mobile that don't have to resort to microtransactions or just sucking all around like the Mega Man X iOS port, which was very sloppily handled. They could have just made it an emulation of the original, and it still would have been better.
Um, now from
But I'll
a
digress.
a word from our second sponsor, G Fuel.
Oh,
Snort it, drink it, inject it, buy it. G Fuel.
I don't know if this is gonna be in the podcast. Oh man. All right. All right. So we gotta end this fairly soon.
I'm about run out of topics.
Yeah, no, we really are. So someone brought up the worst console of the decade, and I mean, I'm sure immediately everyone thought, Stadia, Google Stadia.
I have a
The
runner-up.
Soldier Boy.
I
Yo,
wouldn't
dang
really
it,
Soldier
count
Freddy.
Boy,
that since
yeah,
it's
the
not
Soldier
really
Boy.
out for this decade yet.
Hey, the
And
Oh,
Stadia's not
Leo's
a
gotta
console either.
The
Yeah.
It
Ouya
advertised
thing that
as one.
Leo is shouting about.
I've never heard of it.
I don't know what it is either.
If you've never heard of it, then can it really be the worst?
Yeah,
Yes.
it doesn't have. Well, it doesn't have like what you call it, infamy. There's no infamy in it.
Actually, speaking of like terrible consoles, I actually do have an idea for that. I don't know how many people know about this because it was a complete flop whenever it happened, and that's why I don't have so much faith with Stadia.
Mhm.
And that was OnLive. OnLive basically did the same exact thing as Stadia is doing. They did cloud gaming, and they kind of had like their own little gaming console, and it was about the size of maybe like an Elgato, like HD60, like that. It was a pretty small thing, but it was the same premise as like the Google Stadia. It's all about cloud gaming and stuff, but it completely flopped because, for one, they did not have a huge selections of games. Not everybody had the greatest internet to actually stream those games, and of course, you had to buy all the same games over again when you already own them. And you could actually do it on your phone and stuff. And I think iPhone and like Android and stuff like years ago, but it was a complete flop. Yes, I'm talking about OnLive.
I think there's a similar one. The Ouya. Leo was yelling about it in chat. What it is it's supposed to be a modular game console that you make your own games for, and it's this crazy thing, and it's really, really weird that they want people to make their own games.
Huh.
I remember the interviews with that too, with the girl basically acting like it was like the best console in the world, but she got shut down because it was a piece of garbage.
I'm actually gonna look this up.
The interview is really funny, actually. I advise watching it.
Is it on YouTube or?
I think so. I can find a link and put it in the chat.
Please
the
do.
Ouya game console being sold for $32 on eBay.
That's hilarious. It's pretty much just an Android.
There's no like
One of
selling
the,
point, no gimmick.
One of the biggest things for Ouya right now, their most searched thing, is the Ouya CEO Instagram.
What's all going on with Instagram?
I have no idea, but apparently it's the CEO's Instagram. That's their most searched thing.
I believe it. It was a complete flop. The idea of it was like you could create your own games, and it was built to like easy like mod the console, I guess. And they had like this special like clear edition, and I don't know. It was just a complete flop, and I, to be honest, don't even know what happened to it.
It's really hard to enter the console wars right now because, like Nemo said, not only is there like less of a competitive aspect to the consoles than there's ever been before. Like the '90s was a bloodbath, the 2000s was a little bit softer, but now it's like there really isn't like a big best console debate, and it's really hard to enter the console scene and actually make an impact because a lot of the things have already been done before, and we're trying to stray away from bad gimmicks like the Kinect and PlayStation Move PlayStation Move, which completely were forgotten about in like the first year or two. So it's hard on new console developers to actually make something worthwhile with like new technology that can face against the big three: Sony, Nintendo, and
Microsoft.
yeah, there you go. But that's just my opinion.
Hey guys, sorry,
completely
I enjoyed the podcast, but my phone's at like 1%, so I'm actually gonna hop out of here.
All right.
Thanks for having me, boys. Later.
Yeah. It's nice
Mm.
talking
All
to
right.
you.
Nice having you.
Yeah.
Take care.
We might as well start to finish up now, so we
Yeah.
can just like go over all bases. So the best game overall we agreed on. Okay, not
It's
overall.
either Minecraft or Skyrim is what we
Minecraft or
came to the
Skyrim.
conclusion.
I think
Yeah.
I think those got like the most
Yeah.
votes.
My heart's
Mostly because of the replayability and modding capability to keep the game going beyond what it was initially made for.
Yeah. Just they can be expanded so much. And then worst game,
Everybody has a preference.
everyone has a preference. Yeah, there's no overall one. And then for worst mobile, there was really just it was just everywhere. There was no
All
strict
mobile
answer.
games suck.
Just the
Mobile games
mobile.
just suck.
This is where the console wars are. It's
You know
no
what,
longer
just
Xbox,
go to-
PS4, and PC. It's now just everything else in mobile.
Just go to Instagram and scroll
Pretty
down and click every single one of those games, play it for 3 seconds, and then give it a bad review because that's what they deserve.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few like if it's a port of an older game, there's a chance that it might be good, but otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, it's just none of the custom games that are made specifically for mobile seem to be doing much. To be honest, I mean Flappy Bird, and then that's all I can really think of. Flappy Bird and Angry Birds.
Yeah.
So actually, Leo just sent a cursed image of the OnLive. If you need to have a cloud-based gaming console, why would you put a CD port on it?
Okay.
Back to the
off track.
mobile game thing.
Sorry,
though,
sorry.
I feel like why a lot of mobile games don't work outside of abusing microtransactions or just not being that good is I don't know if why, but there's been this large emphasis placed on idle games where you're not really doing that much, like you're letting the game play itself. Like if you've ever played an idle game before, usually just tapping the screen over and over and letting the game run itself. You typically get like the longer you play the game, the the stronger the boss fights become and all. It's just this like concept of an automated game that everyone seems to be running with. And I feel like that really ruins a lot of the potential of what a mobile game can be. I estimate a good 40 to 60% of mobile games are just sit there and watch your stats go up the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, in this society, we always want our numbers to go up. So I mean, I guess
There are a
Yeah,
couple,
What are some just honorable mentions that you don't think got the Game of the Decade title, but were definitely good games?
Last of
Mo-
Us.
Okay,
Last
mobile
of
game
Us.
of the decade. How about I want to just say something about that. I think it's AdCap or Adventure Communist.
Adventure Cap. What?
There's 2 of them.
Adventure
didn't know.
Capitalist, Adventure Communist.
It's one of
Oh.
those clicker games that waste time.
Yeah, it's
So
It's what we
it's
just talked
literally
about.
exactly what we
It's-
said.
It's
was
what we
not
just
good.
talked about. That's kind of not.
Okay, look.
really
look.
good game.
On a 12-hour flight, it's okay.
The topic
mean-
of really good games, one series I feel is really consistent with quality is the Kirby series from Nintendo. Specifically, this decade had Return to Dreamland on Wii, Triple Deluxe on 3DS, and Planet Robobot also on 3DS. Star Allies was on Switch, but I haven't played that one. So, a lot of things that games typically struggle at, Kirby handles really well. Some of my favorite soundtracks, some of my favorite boss fights, some of my favorite stages, they all come from the Kirby series. They always have a lot of content as well. They always, for example, let's take Return to Dreamland, for instance. There's the main game. There's the extra game where it's mostly the same thing, but everything is revamped to kick your ass. There's the arenas, which are like boss rushes. Basically, you fight every boss in the game. There's a sound test where you could listen to every sound, like song from the game. There's typically a mode where you can play as another character. Some games it's DDD, some games it's Meta Knight. But I just feel like representing Kirby because Kirby, you can always rely on that series to give a good quality game.
Can I give my runner-up?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we have 2 minutes.
I'm gonna have to say, I really enjoyed Fallout New Vegas. I think it was kind of a buggy mess, but it was another one of those games I sunk hundreds of hours into. I think that did the lore justice as a Fallout game, and it was mentioned in one of the newest game domain video. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, check that out. It's gonna be on our channel. So let's try and like speed run this. You know, everyone else say their favorite runner up rather than giving a huge explanation. So, like you, I believe you'd be next.
Same deal. Last of Us and probably Kingdom Hearts 3.
All right.
Mr. Mint.
Okay, dyslexic bear. Let's go with you then.
All right. Well, I'm gonna have to say that my honorable mention. A lot of people won't know it, but I'm saying Osu, which is a rhythm game. Pretty much a point-and-click rhythm game. You click circles. Really fun game. It's a free-to-play game, and it's grown a lot over the years. So,
I mean, one of the best original meme came from Osu, right? With Rockefeller music.
well, I do know it's like kind of based off of like Super Beat Agent or something back on the DS, and then somebody like took it over and created a whole game on PC, and it's grown a lot and gotten pretty popular. And now people actually stream it on Twitch.
Rhythm Thief. That's what you said.
I heard Osu.
What consoles is that game for? I'd actually like to check that out. It has this sick anime aesthetic, I think.
Yeah, Osu is only on PC. There's a couple ways you can either play it. They have a couple different game modes as well, but pretty much you click circles as the whole premise of the game. And some people prefer to use either a mouse to do it. Other people use drawing tablets. I'm a drawing tablet player, so that's how I like to play.
All right. So I think that about wraps it up. Does anyone have any final words to say?
Final Fantasy XV was pretty lit.
All right. All right. So we were joined by Plaid, Faded, Fantasy Jared, Laiku, Mr. Min, Dyslexic Bear, and a few people dropped in and came out and went in and out of this podcast.
Of course, our excellent host, Nemo Nobody.
Hi. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting to say my own name. This is miserable. Man, I'm not even getting myself PR in this. But yeah, no. Go ahead and check out Game Domain. We have tons of videos for you guys to watch. You also head over to Film Domain, where you post about once a month over there, and they relate to films rather than games. So yeah, no, that should be about it. And yeah, boom. I think we just finished the podcast.
Attention, all Game Domain fans. We hope you enjoyed this video. Now, if you did, remember to subscribe, like this video, and then check out some of our other videos. Please join our Discord to chat with our staff and our other GD fans. Also, check out our Patreon, our merch store, and other links all down in the description. Thank you.